printed. Welcome everybody here to the City Council of the City of Escalon regular meeting of August 5th, 2019. Would you please join me in the salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Merkin?
Here.
Councilmember Kremick?
Here.
Councilmember Lejoux?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Alves?
Here.
Mayor Swift?
Here. And let's see, I think tonight we're going to go right into the consent calendar. Of course, these items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. For example, on item number 2, I will be abstaining from voting on check numbers 9656 and 71445. Is there anything else that we would like to have special consideration regarding?
I would like to abstain from item 3.
Okay, duly noted. Are there any other considerations, or are we ready to
Trying to get mine up.
move forward with the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Consent calendar passes 5-0. Staff communications.
Well, except just to note, number 3 was passed 4-0 with Mr. Krummer.
Good point. Very good point. Thank you for noting that. Thank you for noting that. Staff communications. It looks like we have a few issues that you'd like to have some direction on.
Dominique is going to take the first one.
Thank you. So we currently have some houses or residences in town that we're working with on an ordinance or code enforcement status. So I have a couple different areas where our code is either unclear or doesn't provide enough information or enough detail to narrow down how staff would be able to move forward. So there's currently no accessory structures are allowed in the front setback of the house, including the driveway. I wanted to make sure that that's still the direction council wants to move in. We do have a few of them that have been turned in over the last few months that we're working with. Some of them put them up over their driveway because they have a lack of a garage or lack of a side yard. Items such as that, I just wanted to confirm that we're still moving forward with no accessory structures in the front yard setback, even over the driveway, which is how it's always been. So if somebody was to put up a metal awning over their driveway and it's in the front yard, if it doesn't meet setback requirements, which would be 15 feet from the street, it would have to be taken down, permanent or temporary. So I just wanted to get direction on that.
What was the overarching, what was the original reason why there's a prohibition on that? Is it just appearances?
I think it's aesthetics. I would say 100% aesthetics when people are driving down streets. If it's not a part of the house and it doesn't match the house or look like it was built with the house and meets those setbacks, when you drive down, everybody in the first 15 feet of their house at least is clear, so the driveway's open and doesn't have an overhang where you typically have those types of structures set back to where when you're driving down the street, they're not out in the open. So I just wanted to make sure
Would it be too much to ask to provide a couple of like examples, like picture examples as exactly what we're talking about, or like that?
Like that?
Yeah.
I got 50 of them. Which one do you want to see?
It seems to me like in some of the older neighborhoods where they build houses that don't have garages, that it seems to me like there are some that have carports and have been there for a long time.
So the ones that are built with the house or appear to be built with the house, and have been there, those aren't the ones that are coming to our attention. They're ones that are either recently put up or they're actual metal awnings that are put out in the front setback, so they
Yeah.
weren't not, obviously not built with the house.
Okay.
A whole separate structure, separate from the house,
Okay.
and just placed right over the driveway for shade.
Okay.
The ones with the houses that they look like they were built with them, obviously, to the best of our knowledge, unless it becomes a health or safety issue, we're really not worried about per se, because they were probably built before we had a code, or at least with the house, so.
Okay.
And I think that's probably, touching on what you were saying, I think that some of these, and they've been in town so long, aesthetics or not, you really don't even think about it. You're just driving by and, oh, there's so-and-so, and you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
So, some of the older ones, I understand some of the newer ones.
So that has been,
like
a
canvas.
few of the argument behind it is their house doesn't have a garage, so they don't have a way of providing shade. There isn't room on the lot to be able to build a garage or to provide a shelter anywhere else, because the lots are small. So if that was council's direction to provide some type of exception in the code, to make exception for those, we could do something like that. Or if we wanted to leave it the way it is, we will just handle it according to code at this point.
Seems like exploring an exception like that may not be a bad idea, especially on some of the older homes that have been there forever already. And I mean, I can understand like the canvas ones, that looks a little, okay, but on some of the ones that have been there for years and years and years, may be worth looking to see if there's some kind of an exception if they don't have a garage.
Proximity to the roadway has a lot to do with
Yeah,
it, too.
yeah.
In addition to, while this is extremely important, we have a lot of other violations that I like to know what we're gonna do about. I mean, we have tons of them. I've got 50 pictures in here, and I've shared most of them with you, and I wanna know what we're gonna do about it, because it's horrendous. I mean, we have people parking cars on their lawns, stacking up cars behind their house. I mean, I don't know what's going on in this town, but we've turned into like a little, I don't know what to describe it as. It's just insane.
So that was my next level of direction. Our code currently, with a lot of the ones that we're dealing with on enforcement, we don't have anything in our municipal code that limits numbers of vehicles you could park at your house, either in your driveway or on your side yard. We do have it in our code that you cannot park on your lawn, and we offer either pavers or gravel. It must be gravelled, except for your actual, you could do that on your side, one side of your house. You can't do it on your whole front yard. Another item that's come up is the possibility of limiting the number of recreational vehicles. We do have a handful of homes in town that have more than 1, 2, 3 that take up their whole driveway, their whole side yard. And then I do have a few ones I'm working with right now that have over 5 or 6 cars that are just being stored. And then it's the difference between parking it and storing it. After a while, you can tell it's being stored, which would basically be sitting there more than 72 hours, so.
Well, do we want to parse out the first question first in terms of the accessory?
What I want to know is this: when can we move forward on what we know we can do, and what is it we know we can do, and what would that be?
That's what we're working on right now.
No, what we're working on is actually trying to develop a ordinance that addresses the parking under what we consider currently as illegal parking structures. That's one thing she's asking for direction in that. But what I want to know is, and I don't have a problem with that, but I still want to know, when is it we move forward on what we know we can do, and when can we get on that? Because there's way too much out there, and I don't want to spend a lot of time going after stuff that's going to take a while. Meanwhile, that just continues to linger. So my question is, when and how can we move forward immediately and stop some of this stuff, or at least get the word out to these people, this is not acceptable?
Well, once we can make some updates to the code, whatever is in the code right now, so in some of the ones you're speaking about, they don't have a fence screening their backyard. We can let them know they need to put the fence up and give them a certain amount of days to put up a fence to screen whatever's on the side yard away
When can
from
you
the
park 2 vehicles
street.
behind your house? When did that become something we people can do? Instead of putting lawn or yard, you park your vehicles back behind your house. When does that become something that's normal?
There's nothing in the code that disallows for that if it's behind a screen. And so if they have a fencing up and you can't, and it's screened from the public view.
They still have to cross the lawn to
They
get
do.
there.
But they do, yeah, and so.
So where's the driveway?
So, And then some of them obviously don't have their side yard done, but we give the option of pavers instead of concrete as well, or gravel.
How about those that have neither?
Yeah, I mean, and so that's the issue is I don't, there isn't enough language in the code to be specific when you're dealing with code enforcement. If it doesn't say exactly what you're asking, it's open to interpretation, which makes it harder in the event of them moving forward with trying to file an appeal or trying to argue the issue, which some of them may do anyway, but it's a process, and the way our system is set up right now, that if we do any appeals, we don't have a fee established for them. We have to hire somebody to be that third-party hearing officer, and so it's costly, where if it's more than clear in the ordinance that this is specifically what is being
Well, this, I understand.
violated.
Okay, I'm
it's-
getting the picture.
it's
But
easier,
here's the
yeah.
deal. I get it. It's gonna take some time. Let's have a timeline. Let's not go 6 months down the road and 10 months down the road, a year from now, and say, oh, we finally got it done. Let's set some time restraints on getting this thing done and cleaning up this town.
Sure, I mean, and that's fine, but I need direction on whether or
understand.
not these type of things are
I
the
understand this.
direction council wants me to
Right,
move
right,
in.
and that's why.
And we would have
yeah.
to go through updating the municipal code to make
I
sure they're in
understand.
there.
I think that's the way the council wants to go, is enforce what we can now.
Yes,
Bring us back the language
Bingo.
in the ordinance update
Mm-hmm.
so that we can address.
and that's the
The
direction.
other items that are not
That's the direction we'll be
specified.
moving in right now,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That is the direction we're moving in. It's just,
Yeah, but
it's just difficult at this point in time, because the stuff I can move on is minor compared to what's
Yeah.
going on those
Yes.
properties.
But you
So-
need to know, like, okay, are we all okay with existing, accessory structure, or do we want an exception? Or are we okay, do we only want 3 cars in the driveway? Or, I mean, you need to have some direction from us
Yeah.
to get started on this, so
So,
we can start going on
I
it.
guess, so number one would be, whether or not we want to provide an exception to people for accessory structures in the front yard setback if they lack a garage. If that's something that you're interested in, we can
what do you
look
guys
into adding that. If
That's
not,
reasonable. People need to have cover. There's no doubt about that. The question is the quality of that cover and how it
And we
affects
can-
the environment around it.
Yes.
The one thing about the freedom, your freedom's only as good as the next person you're dealing with. I mean, if you're trashing your house, you're trashing your neighbors in. We
think
live in a small town. If you wanna live like that, live out in the country. But we need to have structures that are presentable.
I think if they build a reasonable looking structure and not, I'm not for the metal roofs or the tents. I've seen tents also.
or tarps,
Or-
yeah.
or Tarps, yeah, I'm not for that, so, but if they want to construct something that maybe matches the house, abuts up to the house and is within the setback, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Are we
If
okay
they don't
with
have
that
a
one?
garage.
That,
Yeah,
So
okay.
what if it's a garage that's been converted?
To what?
So they used to have a garage, and now the garage was converted into living space.
Then I
Or
think-
their garage is full, so they can't park in the garage
Well,
because
then,
they have,
yeah, that's
it's
kinda-
stored.
I think that falls back upon them. That's
Okay.
their problem.
Right.
so it's actual lack of a garage, 100%, like your house was not built with a garage, yes.
You just don't have a
Correct,
house.
yeah.
Okay.
Not a conversion, 0 garage.
Okay.
So you okay on that one?
Yes. So then the next item would be whether or not the council would be interested in limiting the number of recreational vehicles that can be parked in front of somebody's house,
In front of somebody's house or on their driveway?
on their driveway, on their side yard, on their property.
What is the, give me the,
So right now, there's no prohibition against putting as many cars as you want to on in your yard, side yard or front yard, as long as it's on driveway, pavement, or gravel. So,
And-
unless they're inoperable, if
Right.
they're inoperable, then that's considered a nuisance. But
So
if
this would
they're
be stored,
operable-
not parked, stored.
Yeah, but they're still
Yeah.
operable.
Yes, and operable. They're just being stored as opposed to being used.
But, yeah, I mean, that would be almost impossible to enforce.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, obviously not something we have staffing to be able to go out and,
Yeah, and what does store mean?
yeah. And so it would have to
anyway,
be
right
very
now,
obvious where they've
people
been
can
sitting
have
there
as many
long
cars as
times.
they want to on their
Yeah.
property, as long as it's on pavement, gravel, or pavers.
Yeah.
So do you want to change that? That's,
And- And so another one that has also come up is the storing of vehicles in front of your garage, because in that essence or style, if you're storing something in front of your garage, you're therefore not using your garage, which means you must not be parking something in it, and your garage is supposed to be used for parking. And so if you have a bunch of stuff in your garage and then you're storing vehicles that aren't moving or are not being used on a daily basis on your driveway, or RVs, you're parking a boat there that doesn't move 6 months out of the year, is that something we want to limit on motor vehicles, or recreational vehicles?
This sounds like it's really swerving like in a big
And this
homeowners
is just
association, and
stemming
that's
from,
great. And if you want to live in one of those,
I have a handful
know.
of houses that have 2 to 3 actual recreational vehicles that
Yeah.
are parked out front. And so,
do the neighbors have an
2
issue with it?
RVs, 2 boats,
But they're not on the street.
but they're not on the
They're on the
street.
property.
They're on their private property, but there's so many of them, and they're out in that front yard setback where you turn down the street, and they're all right there blocking the house.
Let me ask you this, what are other cities doing? Do we have any idea what other cities are doing? Is it working for them, what they're doing? Can we look into that? Let's take a look at, for example, let's go to a town, maybe someone comparable to us, and look at what they're doing and see if it works.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I've looked at a few, the smaller cities, when we were dealing with updating our recreational, our 72-hour vehicle code of about a year ago or so, we had looked at Ripon, who after 1987 or a certain date, there's only, all the new neighborhoods after that are not allowed to store RVs in the neighborhoods at all, whether it's in your yard, in your front yard, on the
RV
street.
being like a motorhome?
Anything recreational
Boat,
vehicles.
motorhome.
Boats, motorhomes, and none of
Not a
that
four-wheel
stuff's-
vehicle, though?
Not what?
Not a four-wheel vehicle, like a big truck?
No, they don't count motor vehicles, it's all recreational
Okay.
vehicles or vessels.
They don't have anything, nothing?
They don't, yeah, after, I think it's 1987.
What
All
about
of them-
homes that were designed with RV parking?
I would have to check.
Because we have that here in this town, that's the reason I'm
Yeah, we
asking.
have some that have the side yard. I mean, and for us, I think it would be comfortable for us, if we're fine with letting people park a recreational vehicle on their side yard, then that's fine. But are we fine with having them, and we have a number of them that are parked in the front yard, we have ones that have multiples, and we
Yeah.
could say you could have one in your front yard, or,
It's gotta be done tastefully.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, you can drive around different places and you see people have their RVs parked where the front, ball is like a little bit over the sidewalk, and they've parked it at an angle just barely to make it fit. And
Yeah.
I think it looks terrible. I think that RVs, even parked on the side of a house, look terrible. And I think that if we could rewrite this code from the beginning, I think I would have said something, you can't park an RV unless you have a certain size lot. And if you have, if your lot is typical 8,000 square feet or whatever it is, or whatever. So I don't think RVs look good in town at all. I don't think they look good on the street, in somebody's side yard, even if they have a fence. That would be a pretty drastic code change, but, I think that it doesn't make the town look nice to have RVs parked everywhere and tons of vehicles. Now, I'm a little conflicted because I do believe in private property and you should be able to kind of do what you want on your own space. But I don't think it looks nice, and I don't think it makes neighborhoods look nice to have RVs parked everywhere.
And that's kind of the argument I get as well, is it's my private property or it's my property, but the difference being is you're in a neighborhood where you have houses a lot closer to you. It impacts the neighborhood more than if you lived out in the country and you're farther away from your property and have space all around you.
I think the compromise would be that they have an adequate space done properly, then they should have the right to store their vehicle there. I agree with Peter, some of it doesn't look real good, but at the same time, I understand your other point, which is you're right. People have a right to use their property, and I don't want to be the person who tells them they can't. But if they're going to use their property, use it in a tasteful way that everyone around you can appreciate it, rather than being, embarrassed to have people come by because you got this neighbor that decided to trash his property. It's not right. It's not fair to everybody who lives around you. If you don't like that environment, you need to move out in the county.
Are the neighborhoods with these issues, are they complaining, or is this just a observation that
We
the
get
city
a-
needs
I-
to address?
We get a lot, maybe because it's summertime, a lot of our complaints that we're getting right now are recreational vehicle, and it's the time of year where they're all out and about, so there's a lot of boats out right now, there's a lot of RVs out, and it could be temporary, some people take them out for the season and then put them and store them back, but we do get a lot of them.
There's a couple of residences that are habitual problems, that the stored vehicle that Dominique's referring to, there's like, a boat trailer,
That's a
a
mess.
trailer with 2 or 3 ATVs.
Unbelievable.
And an RV.
2 RVs.
That take up the entire, and then the vehicles that operate are parked on the street.
Yeah.
And so,
There's about 10, 12 cars.
and so we're limited to what action we can do with the current code. I mean, we go out and we'll cite those vehicles that we can cite. And with the current code, if we get complaints with the vehicles
Yeah.
parked on the lawn, we're going out there, we're educating people, and hopefully they're moving their vehicles before we have to come back out and cite them, and most have. They've either made the improvements to allow the parking where they've had it parked on the grass, but there's at least 1 or 2 residents that we have, they're habitual. I mean,
They're pretty bad, yeah.
constant complaint. I mean, one of them been being complained on for 5 years that I've been here.
Yeah. Well, I think agree with Councilmember Reynolds. Let's see what some of these other towns have. And, I mean, last thing I want to do is start dictating what everybody can do in their own front yard and side yards. I understand they have complaints, and maybe some of the complaints are out of jealousy, I don't know, but I understand. I've seen some pretty darn tacky yards with a lot of junk in them,
Maybe we should take a look at some of our worst cases and address those specifically.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yep, that's good.
Good
I
call.
mean, if you've got 4 or 5 vehicles on your lot, limit it to 1 or 2. Most people, I think, either have a boat, a trailer, a car, something like that, so I think most people, if you give them 1, that's fine, but you get the 4 and the 5s, then you have a problem. So let's look at those, identify those, and then bring us back the language
Okay.
that would deal with those, and I think we're okay.
Would that fit a lot of the situations you're talking about, Chief?
So ones I have in mind, are 2 particular residents that come to mind. One you're familiar with, unfortunately. And
Oh,
another,
yeah.
I believe Councilman Merkin might be familiar with, because it's in and around his neighborhood. Are the 2 that, when I see them, they irritate me, and I don't live.
Yeah. I just don't look.
And it's a process, obviously, with that number of vehicles, you have to kind of work at them to an extent to get them off the
Yeah.
property. But
Yeah,
then
but you're right.
it's,
Yeah.
it's them putting it to us, where am I gonna put them?
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It's some semblance of decorum if you're living in town, you need to have some semblance of decorum, so.
Yeah.
Do you have some direction as to this
I'll
one
go
as
ahead-
well?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and look at what other cities are doing, and then I will provide some updated language.
I think it's important, which cities are you gonna look at, like, you gotta look at the nice.
I try to look
different-
at, I try to look at smaller cities that are similar to us. I don't like going to like Modesto and such, because they're a lot larger.
Who do you look at, Hillmar, Linden?
I like looking at Ripon, Houston, they're smaller, quaint, high population of law enforcement in town, so there's that expectation that things are
Well, we look at
nicer
Del Rio
because
while
there's
you're
less
looking at 'em.
crime and everything too, so.
Take a look at Del Rio too, to compare it to the rest of them.
Okay, and Del Rio, yeah.
I mean, it's something to look at. You look at the high end, the low end.
Well, so they might be different in the aspect that they have the HOA and the CCNRs that are actually
Enforced.
enforced,
Yeah,
yeah.
'cause, you know-
And so that's a little different, because a lot of the CCNRs in town do say you're not supposed to have any recreational vehicles, but we don't enforce those, so.
Why not?
They're not our laws, they're civil
It's
matters,
CCNR, you gotta
Better
go to
to
Oh,
court.
that's right,
subdivision and
the
the
property
developer.
associations,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
But most don't have a property association.
yeah, and most of them don't have the actual association,
Isn't that
yeah,
funny?
so. Okay, so I'll bring something back.
Okay, and item 7. Who has item 7, which is a parking,
Oh,
lease of
yes.
recreational vehicle
I'm like,
parking?
wait a minute, I already talked about it.
Yes.
So, in regards to our recreational vehicle parking in the back, behind the police department, we are full. So, it was talked about a while back when we first looked at this in October, of phase 2, which would be taking up that area, the vacant lot area. There have been, some concerns with, if we were to move forward with solar, maybe needing that area for solar paneling. But the the phase two would incorporate some type of curb cutting and then gravel being laid down on that lot for people to be able to park on
Park
there.
right
We
there?
just needed, yeah, we just needed staff direction on whether or not you wanna move forward with that.
Well, if you're making the money now, it might pencil out now.
Well, here's the deal. I can get the stone or the rock dedicated to the city for a trade. The trade is minimal impact on us. The trade would be that we would advertise the trucking companies looking for drivers on our bulletin board out there, the electronic sign, and he would give us enough rock to facilitate the needs for that center.
And that was your biggest expense.
That's right.
What were we looking at, like 4,000
Yes.
originally?
He'll listen to the trade. He'll do the
I
trade.
apologize, I don't have the
Oh,
number.
no, it's okay. No, I thought it was something like in that
Is that about
ballpark.
4,800?
You're around 5,000.
5?
Well, he'll do it for nothing as long as we let him put up a sign
Well,
looking for
that's
drivers.
not, that wasn't just the rock, was it? Or,
No, that wasn't just.
No.
the
Yeah.
I thought the rock was the biggest
What
part,
else
but yeah,
was
there's
it?
other parts.
What else is involved?
The concrete cutting, labor and cutting the concrete and putting asphalt back.
are you gonna have to roll it?
Yeah, and have to compact the rock when it gets in.
That's all right. It's still worth doing.
Would you 75 a month?
Yeah, 75 for the large ones and 50 for the smaller ones. I've had 2-3 people call me already disappointed there's no openings, and I said, well, we're working on it, so. I think,
How many spots will that add?
oh, I'd say maybe 10, maybe.
No, I don't think that we can fit 10 on there because of access and, I think when I figured it out, I think it was like 7 or 8. But,
All right.
because you're only gonna be able to do one row. Because how are you gonna maneuver parking them and getting them out?
Well, I don't know, I guess we could look into it and see how other parking people or other agencies do it. We have people here that go to different places, maybe we could ask them.
I think we know how, it's just we're limited on some of the space for the RVs to turn in and out. If we could figure out how to configure it to where they could pull in and out on 2 different directions, that would open it up for us. But I think that's where we're kind of stuck at, is they're able to pull in, then they're probably gonna have to turn around in the lot to get back out. Because we have the recreation vehicles on the north and south side, and it's way too short on the east side to be able to turn left or right to get out, unless we take some more space away in order to do that.
When you
Well,
say
and
space-
then on this, the west side, we have the buses parking there
Right.
too. Because of the length of it, that's the only place that has to park now.
Well, why can't the bus park over where the trailers are, that we have places that are horizontal versus the other ones the other way?
It's because of access, when we put those RVs in there, we can't use those other ends because
We have a
being
back
able to
row.
access them.
And security for
We
the
have
buses.
security for the buses?
We have to have full security on the buses, and it'd be harder for in the very back to have the security on them. We'd have to reroute, maybe get another camera or something.
Yeah.
Which is
I
possible.
mean, it sounds like you're gonna be a little hard pressed not to. I mean, if the rocks, I think was your biggest expense. Let's say you're selling to like a couple thousand. You know, if you rent two, 3 RVs, you're there. Over the course of a year, you're there.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's a pretty minimal number to have to rent in order to have it pay for
Well,
itself
listen,
at this point.
I would move that we move forward on expanding that.
I'd second that.
Yeah. Do you want direction or do you want actual motion? Doesn't matter to me.
Direction is fine.
Direction's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, is
I would
everybody
move
okay with that?
That's fine.
Hold on
that's
just a
fine.
minute. I was trying to clarify, if we get the rock donated and then we're going to advertise for the business, if we have to do anything.
In terms of what?
Well, because is it gift of public funds because you're putting an advertisement up there that you charge other companies for?
Well, we're getting money back for the public right over there.
So that's what I was just clarifying. We may have to have some kind of statement of the value of the donation that we're getting to offset the advertisement. That's the only thing that I
If that were
was
the
wanting to
case, you're gonna be
clarify.
getting free advertising for a long time. I said, if that's the case, you're gonna be giving advertisement for a long time, because rock's not cheap, and he's gonna do that for a trade. I thought that was a really good deal for us.
Well, if it is, then that's not a problem. As long
Yeah,
as it's not-
yeah.
Still doable.
I'm not saying that it's a problem. I'm just clarifying what we need to do to make sure that,
Just document
Friendly.
for our
Yeah.
records that,
Yeah.
that we're.
It's still
getting-
doable.
Getting at least as much as we're giving.
You okay with that?
yes.
We ready to move
So
on?
We're not gonna
consensus
impact
moving
any
forward?
parking on the west side that we currently have for the PD lot, correct?
No. We're probably gonna take maybe 2 stalls from you on that, on the south side or the west side of the parking lot now, that they're parking the dirt lot. But where you and Sarah parking, and most of the lots behind you will still be available.
Okay, as long as we have most of that behind
You-
us.
you may only
There
have
are
2
times when we do utilize all those
You may
parking
have 2
spaces.
spots taken from you at most.
Okay.
You guys might have to start using some of the parking spots in the front too.
Well, we got him.
Because we're gonna have to work out where the bus,
Yeah, true.
because The new bus is longer, and so it can't park at the end here, on this side of it at all. So she's been parking at that corner of that lot, which is, I think, where we were kind of talking about doing the access.
So we okay on this one? All right,
I just need consensus.
proceed, consensus?
Yep.
Yep, I think we're in. Item number 8, discussion Parks and Recreation funds regarding skate park.
So, staff was requested to put this on by, Councilmember Legero.
I think the majority of the foundation members are here, and I think they've got some updated information for us. I don't know if Mr. Sipes would like to address the updated costs for the skate park.
Yes, please. Oh, don't bring that up yet.
Make it all officially and like,
I didn't wear a tie, sorry.
close enough.
Good evening. As many of you know, we engaged, we sent out a request for proposal to a number of skate park builders in excess of 3 years ago now. And through a fairly lengthy process, we determined that a company called Dreamland Skate Parks was the best value, as well as the most cost-efficient company for us to engage. So we've done that. We've preliminary created contracts. We've engaged them for some design services. You guys have probably seen some of the initial 3D models that they've generated for us. But since it's been so long since we have talked about construction costs, I'm in the construction business myself. I know that the cost of construction materials have risen significantly over the last 3 years. So we felt it appropriate to get a fresh set of eyes and get our arms around the current costs based on current market conditions. What we're seeing right now is an increase of a total of about 34%. So the company that's been doing the work for us, the heavy lifting on the budgeting, they haven't changed their fees. We haven't changed the structure or the costs that we've allowed in our budget for permitting and site survey and things of that nature, be it Water Resource Board permits and all those types of things. But we have had to take a pretty healthy hit on the cost of primarily, labor, concrete, construction materials, and of course that's wood and forming materials and reinforcing steel. So I think concrete is up about 200% over the last 2 years. Construction materials are up about 25 to 30%. We do $1 billion worth of reinforcing steel a year, and I can tell you that our business has benefited from the cost of steel being 35% higher than it was 3 years ago. But it's hard when you're trying to put something together like we're doing here, where we're strapped with, the finances that we have. So we've got current up-to-date budgets. We've got all the information that we would need to proceed. We just have a greater gap with funding than we did 3 years ago when we started this. So that's my story.
How much do you need?
Right now, at face value, if some of the budget assumptions that we've assembled are all completely accurate, we're total out-of-pocket would be $415,000. Of that, we've paid about $5,000 in design fees.
That's what you're looking at now?
That's what the current total cost is. Yeah.
Okay.
How much
Okay.
money do you guys have in your fund?
We have, I think as of today, we've got about $60,000 that we've raised over the last 7 years.
So you'd probably need to have that gap filled all the way, or?
One of the things, Robert, that we've never been doing, because it's a moving target, is we've never considered the amount of volunteer efforts that
Right.
we perceive the community could create for us. Be it concrete or, rock or
Sure.
materials, some labor. As a side note, one of the reasons that we selected this company was they were very open to the idea of donated materials or donated labor. So they'd be perfectly willing to, at the right time, have, you and I go out there and help them dig holes or do something. Some of the other companies were not very open to that idea. but these guys were. We didn't feel like it was appropriate due to timing and when this was actually gonna kick off on, what the cost of the concrete would be, or the steel would be, or the construction materials, or any of those types of things at the time. So we've always just carried our budget at full value. But there is a perception that we could go out to the community and we could solicit some volunteer, costs or construction materials of some sort.
I got a question. So when was the Parks Foundation set up again? 30 years ago about or something? What? I thought something went back.
2000,
2011?
That's when the skate park,
The first discussions for a skate park, you can go back into the 80s.
the 80s, right? Yeah,
A
that's
lot
what I
of
meant.
efforts here, but I think it was 8 years ago.
I thought it was like 2010 or 11 when it was
Yeah.
developed, yeah.
I think it is
Established.
2011,
2007?
knowing that we didn't have the staffing.
I don't think so. I think it was like closer to 2011, because Henry was the one that helped do that, and he didn't come on board until 2010.
It was 2011. I just got on. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea was to create a foundation to start looking into supporting some of these bigger projects and all. And this has been a labor of love by the board members, because they've spent, summer times, park feet and fireworks booth, generating donations. And the amount of money that they have has really been generated from individual donations. There's no big donor that has come in and said, here's a big chunk of money, go get this thing done. So this is all community-supported, community-based donations to get to that number they're at. We're at a point now where we have the money set aside. And I think if we were to commit that money, we can grant that money to the foundation, and that would put the money in the bank and allow them to actually commit with Dreamland and go to these other, local vendors and look for donated steel, donated concrete, whatever materials that might be needed. So I think we're at that point now, and it is one of the two projects that the community supports and want to see done at the community center, and that would include the parking, the additional parking space, and the skate park. And I think both those projects should move forward with the funding that we do have.
So
How much do we have in the fund again? Like 400?
Well, there's 400,000 in there, but there's 200,000 that's allocated to the community center parking lot rehab.
200,000?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that,
it's about it's 183, I think, is it? So then there's 200,000, and our rough estimates for the parking lot were about, with road base and, labor and everything, it's about 20, and the tree removal is about 27,000.
so the skate park, you guys need like, how much do you guys need if,
If we take the
Minus
budget
the
of
60.
415 minus the 60,000 we have in the bank, we'd be at about
355.
350,000.
we don't have that.
No, and like, I'm not sure, does that include sidewalk around it and everything? Because, I know that there were some things that I had questions about, like whether it has the sidewalk around it, and then what I'm not sure of is if ADA parking is required next to it. I don't know if if the builders or the designers indicated anything on that.
I don't think that they've accounted for that in the,
What about
Their
prevailing
building.
wage?
Oh, yeah, it's there.
But is that accounted for in your
Oh,
budget?
yeah, is that include prevailing wage?
no, it is not, and the reason is we have operated under the assumption, and I think we confirmed this a few years ago, that if the Escalon Parks Foundation as a quasi-private entity went out and hired as the contractor these firms that would come in and assist us, that we wouldn't be mandated to pay prevailing wages.
That's right, but if you accepted city money, then you would.
There's the bird.
What if it was a gift or a donation?
Right.
If it's city funds, then, if the city funds go to that, then it would have to be
So
prevailing
the 300
wage.
turns into 600,000 that we need, right?
Well, what if we did it in phases? What if we
The-
did the first phase to the point you got the park up and running, and then the parking later on, then take the city money and have them do the park with you? I mean, the parking.
Well, I don't think the parking was included in that, was it?
No, the amount of area that we have that's been included in the master plan was basically a 100 by 100 area.
Correct.
And we're building, I want to say, I think we've got a 10-foot offset of that 100 by 100 area. So we're building a park that's, you know, concrete, it's all concrete and brick, and it is
Monolithic.
concrete all the way around the outside of it, but it's basically 90 by 90.
It's gonna be a monolithic pour, right? All one?
No, it'd take multiple pours, just because of the elevations and the grades and the
Oh,
slopes.
okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas how, like, estimated how many people would use it?
I don't have those numbers handy, no, but to comment on your note about prevailing wages, we do estimate, Dreamland has just gone through the same issue with the city of Santa Cruz. It's about a 35 to 40% increase in labor. So we see about a $65,000 to $75,000 swing in the cost of labor.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Okay. You know, my numbers are showing me that if we put off the parking lot at the community center, we would be close between your 355 and the 27 for the parking lot. This is not including prevailing wage. We'd end up at 382 out of that 400,000. So we'd be close. We wouldn't be there, but we'd be close. I'm just throwing this out as food for thought, you know, if we wanted to.
So
pack
don't
it
do
up.
parking, but do the skate park?
Well-
No, don't, he's referencing the community center parking lot. So
Yeah,
the
I mean-
community center parking lot, we're also using some CDBG funds so that's $65,000 that you would lose.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to use it then. And I mean, I would defer to Justin in regards to the conditions of that
That was
parking lot.
my next question.
And
Yeah.
if you tried to patch it or not.
It's not, I mean, it's not it's not patchable. We've been patchable at this point, and each year we go, I mean, it'll stand. I mean, it's asphalt. It's just gonna get bigger and wider, and I'm just terrified of people tripping and breaking ankles. We have so many seniors around the area.
Right.
I mean, I will fix a crack and literally within a week it's gone, unless
Yeah.
I take out 6, 7 feet and take out a section of it.
Right.
What
It was,
causes the
when it was
expansion?
put in, it was not put in properly.
Oh, there you go.
The soil's not compact underneath. It's not the right type of soil.
So you have to redo it from
It
the
has
square
to
one.
Go down to dirt.
Okay. So in other words, so we have the money to do that in the parking lot.
I mean, we have an estimate in there. It hasn't gone out to bid, so we don't know what it's gonna come back.
You won't get it done for 200,000.
North of
Well,
that.
it's really, the budget is like 265, but 65,000 of that is coming from, CDBG as part of the senior side of the money.
That parking lot will cost you all of that.
I gotta make a comment a little bit about, I think somebody, maybe we're not talking about it, but I just don't know, having a skate park in town, I'm really wrestling with the idea of, how much value is that bringing to the community as a whole? How many people is that serving? I don't see any skateboarders anymore, you know, and I don't, maybe kids would use it for scooters or different things, but I don't know. I've talked to a number of people and I say, you know, what do you think about an idea of a skate park? And for the most part, people don't like skaters and they don't want skateboarders. I know we've had a number of problems with our business, you know, with skateboarders, and maybe the idea is, well, we could give them someplace to go. I understand that. But I don't know. I'm a little bit conflicted on this one. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm flip-flopping here a little bit. I know I was kind of in favor of doing the skate park, the parking, and the track around there, because I thought it would hit a bunch of elements of a park without having us to develop the whole thing. But it seems like it's going to be pretty expensive. We might have to pick and choose what we do. I wouldn't stop the idea of the skate park. I think I would vote, you know, have it go through, because if it got to that point, because, you know, they've worked at it for a long time, and we should do something with it. Anyways, I'm dragging on, but that's kind of my thoughts on it.
The Oakdale one's pretty darn popular. I see a lot of people not just skating, but also riding their scooters, and also, frankly, just as a general gathering place for youth. And that's a good thing, you know. And like I say, we do have a few places in this community, you know, like the youth center, they can gather, and that I'm sure it'll become another one right there at Hogan Field. Highly visible place, you know, so the police can keep an easy eye on it. Yeah, I'm trying to find a way to do all of this stuff. And I'm looking right at the numbers, and I know they don't add up, you know.
But realistically, this has been solely supported by the community. This effort has been supported since the foundation was implemented, And even before that, there's just no funding mechanism for it. So now you've got the foundation that is a repository for people, donating money, coming in, kids donate money, parents donate money. The reason you don't see skateboarders around here is because if they're skating, the police got to run them off of the property at, on Cougar Lane or, around Starbucks. So they don't skateboard there because they get confronted. Those that also skate, they're going to these other communities and they're going to those parks. They're going to Ripon, they're going to Oakdale, they're going to Riverbank. Every community around here has a place for their kids who skateboard to go. It's a non-traditional sport, and we never have supported that in this community. It's always been the standard traditional sport. So we've never given them their own place to go and congregate and skate. So this is the type of project that needs to be supported by the city, because we're at that point where we know that it's supported by the community. It's because it's supported with their own donations. It's supported by a foundation that has been working on this for at least 7 years, if not more. And here we are sitting on the money that would allow this project to go forward. If they use the whole amount, great. If they don't, it's a foundation that can use that money for other projects. So if we grant the money to the foundation, they can go to Dreamland, they can go to the other vendors, and they can say, we're ready to go. What will you do for us? And they would actually be able to negotiate and actually put together the real numbers that they're gonna have to deal with. So that's where we're at, and that's why I think this money needs to be granted and made available to the foundation to move forward on this. They're gonna be tearing out trees. There's gonna be some cost savings between whoever's gonna donate to pull up the trees. Our lease is with Tilbury right now. This is not impacting that lease. He's good to go with both the parking. He's good to go with both, with the skate park as well. So, until, the problem is until we commit these funds or grant these funds to the foundation, we're never gonna have a real number. We're just gonna spin around in circles, and they're gonna wait another 7 years to get a few more donations along the way here, and then by that time, the money's gonna be spent. So this is a project that is supported by the community. It needs to get done. We're at the point where we can move this forward, and the foundation is not gonna die once the skate park is completed. That is just one of the projects and that's probably the biggest project that they're ever gonna be, associated with. So if we can get that project done, and along with that, there's gonna be additional parking space with the tree removal and the ground prep at the community center, we're miles ahead of where we were just a few years ago. So I think we need to push on this, we need to make this happen, and we're at that point where we need to take some leadership on this.
Yep, Councilmember Legero, so let me throw this scenario out. You're talking about maybe prevailing wage, you'll add about 70 grand to a job like this, something like that?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's say you're 355 short, so that takes you up to, you only need 425. Then we toss in the parking lot, that's 27K. Now that's 452,000. Now that's assuming that we decide, we're gonna pull back on redoing the community center parking lot. That's based on that scenario. But this scenario, like what you were talking about, can work. You'll still be short a little bit,
I
but,
think- I think we can't give them what we don't have. So
Right.
there is a limit to what we can put on the table and grant to them. But I think with that, they know that they are there. They can tighten up whatever missing pieces there are. They'll be able to go out and get donations. There are people that have approached the foundation and said, what do you need? Well, you can't answer that question until you know what you need.
Well, yeah,
And it's hard to
this is-
say
yeah.
we need $400,000 from some random person that comes by, So
Yeah, we
it's a
need
lot
money.
easier to say, hey, we need 10 grand, or we need materials, or we need some concrete, or we need some rock. So until we make that commitment to them, they're dead in the water. Unless somebody walks up and says, here's a check, go make it happen. So,
So when you say make the commitment, what are you suggesting? Like, are you suggesting not doing the community center park and just
Yep.
donating all of those funds?
making those funds available to them now. And then once they know where they're at, whatever donations have been given to them, whatever, volunteer work is been achieved, then we will know. And whatever they have left over, they still have available to donate to other projects in the community, which could be the parking lot, which could be other projects, the walking track or the running track, whatever it is. So are there other funds available for parking lots?
No, that's using, no, not for the community center. So in essence, you would be driving up future costs to redo the community center parking lot because those CDBG funds have been hard for us to keep and have continually slipped away. This was one project that we got to get in there this year that they would allow the monies to go to. So I guess, you know, from a staff standpoint, there is concern about whether that will be available in the future for it. Plus, I mean, just as they're experiencing, the cost is gonna go up if we do this in the future.
Not necessarily. I mean,
How?
costs go up and down. So if construction tanks, we're gonna get a bargain. You know, it's the same thing. If we waited another 2 or 3 years, maybe the market tanks and everything is cheaper. Because we've already experienced that over the last few years. And they're experienced, you know, the uptick in construction. But we can find a way to fund the parking lot if it's that important. We've, you know, borrowed from one fund to fund different projects that were critical to get done at certain timings, right? Or based on timing. So at this point, to me, it's we can kick the can down the road and keep doing this, but it's never going to get it accomplished. And quite frankly, this is community supported, and I want to carry out what the community is asking us to do. And you know, if we can't commit the full 400,000 that's in there, we commit 300, 350, at least they have a number that they can operate off of. They can go back to Dreamland, they can go back to the vendors, and they can say, this is what we can do. This is where we're at, and this is what we need to achieve this. So, but until we commit that money to them, whether it's, I don't know if the best way is to donate it or make it available to them so that they know that they've got it standing by and they can go negotiate. It doesn't seem to matter from a prevailing wage standpoint, whether
I'm a
it's
little
sitting in our
confused here.
account or theirs.
What we're talking about is you have so much money and you want to take it to a group called Dreamland?
Dreamland is the builder.
Oh, it's a builder?
Yeah.
And what's the deal? If you give them so much, he might help you out, or?
Well, you've got potential donations of steel, you have potential donations of concrete, you have potential donations of building materials.
Okay.
And they will not know that until that money is there, and they can say, okay, this is what we have, this is what we want. Dreamland was specifically chosen out of the various contractors that they talked to, that they went out to bid with.
Right.
Because Dreamland would specifically allow them to accept those donations and offset the cost.
Okay, so they're willing to work with you?
That's right. There's a couple other considerations. Up to this point, as I previously described, we've been operating as kind of a standalone entity. Like, we had to figure out a way to stand on our own 2 feet to get this to work top to bottom, soup to nuts, if you will. And with that, you know, being in construction myself, I realize that when you go onto a job site and then you've got other projects that are being contemplated, ergo the parking lot or the potential track, that if you combine some of those scope items together, you can usually get some shared services where we can benefit from the grading that's done by, you know, a portion of the work for the track or for the parking lot, or vice versa. We thought about, at one point in time, you know, maybe it would be appropriate to have additional bathrooms over that, in that area. Well, if we're collaborating, the city and the Parks Foundation, we could probably find a number of mechanisms or shared services, so to speak, by combining some scope items simultaneously that we've never been able to consider. There's probably $15,000 to $16,000 in fees that we've assumed between the city and the permitting and design review and survey and some services that the city already has, that until we have an opportunity to not be a standalone entity and open our doors and budgets to the city, we have no idea what those costs would be or what the city might offer in assistance for that, for something that you might already be doing. So there's potential savings beyond what Jeff has described and what I've described in here with donations. We've just always felt it appropriate to have, you know, a full cost proposal at our, you know, as the carrot dangling in front of us. So we've got a goal to get to. But like Jeff said, there's a number of things that we can do if we know what our amounts are. There's certain design features within the park itself that could be toned down. You could have a 4-foot ramp instead of a 5-foot ramp, or you could have maybe a little bit less fancy brick. I don't know all of the answers to those questions, and I don't know the value those all contain until we can physically go and say, okay, Dreamland, I need real hard construction documents that we can submit to the city. We can start looking at what permitting fees are. We can start looking at what, these features cost, and okay, let's take that steel rail out of this location and let's shorten that one up and save $1,000 here. We don't know that. Nor do we know if we can go to P&L and say, can we have 250 yards of concrete or 500 yards of concrete? We just don't know what the answer to those questions are.
What are the insurance costs on having, isn't that a big liability to the city, like having a skate park?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Would that be a big cost increase?
So the way that our insurance
RMA.
works, it kind of goes off of a history of claims, so it wouldn't hit you at first. It could factor in later. But there is one other thing, because that property is technically still in the county, so I don't know, Dominique, if you were able to get a hold of LAFCO on that at all? Not yet?
Yeah.
Another question, so if the prevailing wage is gonna drive the cost up, would it change anything? What if the foundation donated the money to the city and then the city did the project? How does that change
It's
things?
gonna be preventative.
Then we would have to go out, and bid the project, where if we give them the money, they don't necessarily have to go out and bid the project.
But is
So
there
they
a
could-
potential you could get a lower bid?
Well, I guess there could be that potential, but the potential would be that you would get a contractor that wouldn't allow you to get donations and work with you like Dreamland has, agreed to work with them.
One of my concerns is we just empty the fund and give it to the foundation, and then, hopefully everything works out. Hopefully they come in at budget. Hopefully the project goes through. Hopefully, to me it's I don't know. It's tough because those funds too, the park funds, were built up by, taxes or fees or whatever other things, and that everybody in the town's committed to, or been charged. And so, I like the idea. It's just, it's kind of, we're kind of on the edge, it seems, with whether or not it would work or not. So,
If we funded this fully and we still did the community center parking lot, which sounds to me to be critical, that would require us to either go into our reserves for a one-time hit or raid some other fund. What other funds are available?
You'd probably be looking about 650,000 altogether with prevailing wage, the way I'm playing with these numbers, and assuming that there's no crossover with the projects. Well, I think Mike's right. Of course, there'll be crossover. So that's probably your worst-case scenario.
So you're looking
So
at,
if you were to borrow from another fund, then you would prohibit gaining funds in the future for any other development of park until those funds were paid back. So there are some other impact funds that you could borrow from, which would be transportation, which would be money for a signal at Brennan and 120. Or unless you did it from the general fund. So any of the interfund loans that we have now annually, an interest is calculated based on what the annual interest rate is and added to that debt. So the loans are paid back with interest.
so really we'd be better off if we took a one-time hit to the budget reserve,
To the general fund reserve.
general fund reserve.
Which is at like 40%, when it's supposed to be at 33, so there's some margin there.
Yes. I don't remember the
That's
exact
sort of a rainy day
percentage, but
fund, though.
yes.
well, I know, but it was, So what if we do something like we, get this, is there a way to get this, would this be a vote on the next agenda?
So if we were to, I guess it depends upon how we want to handle those funds, and I'd have to defer to Ann on some of this, but there would definitely have to be some kind of agreement between the city and Parks Foundation about how the funds are going to be used. And I don't know, you could do a public hearing to make sure that there's nobody, you know, you have community support on that too.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
You know, just so that you can make sure
$400,000.
that it's backed,
Yeah.
because as you've talked about, it is, you know, community money that we're using on that, so,
What-
but it would definitely require some kind of agreement between the city and the Parks Foundation.
That doesn't sound like a bad scenario if you have that kind of a public hearing, and at that time, or in the meantime, Dominique's checking up on the county angle, and also in the meantime, Mike, I don't know if there's any way to find out, if you go up to DreamWorks and say, listen, what could be the possible scenario if we come to you, say, we're funded? You know, then what are we looking at, you know, in terms of, you know, is there any savings or anything like that?
Time frame.
Yeah, and then we get back
Well,
at the
there-
next meeting.
They're a construction company, so it's all timing
Sure.
related. I mean, they've got availability in the late summer,
Yeah.
but we could call them next week if we can't react, and that could be next spring.
Yeah, because the reason I'm saying all this, because I'm getting the feeling that, like I say, this could all be doable if we want to take a little bit of a hit to the general fund budget. If there's no huge issue with the county, if it could get this whole thing going. So, I mean, there's an outside chance. I don't think we're there tonight, but I think there's a chance that we might be able to make this whole thing work with some input coming in for the next meeting. Is that okay? Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Stay close, stay close.
He's gone, buddy.
Hi, Kurt Danzer, 389 Noni. Once again, I have to remind you, the council, this is a staff report. This is not an agendized item.
Right.
You shouldn't be talking about city funds and monies without agendizing it and letting the community show up here and have a say and an input on it. I'd like to go back from the beginning when the city was, or the Skate Foundation was set up. It's not a city department. It's a nonprofit. And they were going to raise all these funds themselves. In fact, the city, even though they couldn't, was going to donate land over there at Railroad Park, Main Street Park. And when we realized that wasn't going to work, then they were going to try to grab the nicest spot over at Hogan's Park there, under some oak trees and what have you. And then came the idea of switching Cabral Park to the Bavaros and buying behind there. That was $850,000. And that was going to go to be Hogan Park. And in 8 years, this group has raised $60,000. Does that sound like the community is really supporting it all that much? I mean, I'm just bringing it up. Number two, Jeff, I think you're on the board, or your wife's on the board. I don't even know if you should have a say from the Brown Act and to be able to vote on this. So there's some structural things here I think you need to think and consider. And instead of having these discussions during staff meeting with people from the audience or this concern, that concern, agendize it. Publish it out, let people show up and have their say. I think you'd get a lot more input that way. Right now, you're working in a vacuum. And inter loans with different departments don't get paid back. You haven't paid back the in lieu fees, you haven't paid back public works fees or the transportation fees yet. You just keep running it up. You know, we're 6 years in or 7 years in to the last loan. None of it's been paid back. So the idea of taking more money out of another fund, I think, is just ridiculous. I'd be just totally against it, no matter what the project is. And I'm not for or against this project. It's just, you got to do it right. And it's got to be set up right. And if people have an interest in it and it's city-owned land, then you need to adjust and advise them accordingly. So that's just what I want to say there. And I think you ought to table everything. You've gotten a staff report there and a request, and then agendize it. So we can all talk. Thank you.
Well, that goes to what I was saying about maybe we ought to just go ahead and go with a public hearing next time and just, you know, see where we're at.
And this was only intended to give direction.
Oh, yeah.
Just-
Mhm.
There's
When-
never any decision-making.
Right.
When was the community workshop that we had for input for the development of that property out there?
February 2016.
In
'cause I just
2016, we had a
started.
community meeting where everybody came, gave their input as to what they wanted to see developed out there. Didn't we generate a master plan out of that? And we've got a map, all generated from that community workshop. And one of the items that was desired was a skate park, correct?
Well, I mean, the Parks Foundation was part of it, and we were looking for the location for the skate park, so yes, it was included in there, yes.
And it's on the map that was generated out of the workshop, right?
Yeah.
That's there. Mhm.
So this isn't just some random choice that, oh, let's spend money on a skate park. It's on a community-developed map for the development of that new parkland out there. So,
Is that still where it would go?
same
Yes.
spot, everything's the same.
It's right here, it's on the other side of the feed
gonna
store.
get pretty close to the
back
house.
down. Here, let me have
So
that.
I feel my job as a council member is to listen to the community and to move forward on projects that the community thinks are beneficial. And out of that 2016 community workshop, this map was developed, and this map expresses the community's desire, what they like to see out there. Now we got to figure out how to fund it. So we put this on the agenda to discuss it because we had members from the Parks Foundation here that want to move forward on this project. And here we are sitting on money that we'd like to commit to one of these park projects, one of these recreation projects. It's been sitting in the recreation fund. So there is a discussion tonight, and I'd like to bring this back on the agenda for some action at our next council meeting.
Is that the
So
consensus of the
if,
council?
if
Do we need
we're
a
gonna
motion?
do
No.
a public hearing and you want it advertised,
That'd probably be ideal, I would think.
I'm just trying to think of what the calendar is and trying to,
Yeah, because the only issue we really have, I mean, I don't think there's any issue as to whether or not people want a skate park in town. I think they do. The only issue at this point is where do we want to go ahead and donate these, put these monies in that direction? And very good point. Okay, we can't really do it tonight.
prefer to have a soccer field. Maybe they have a track.
Yeah. But either way, you have the public hearing at the next council meeting to discuss this item a little more formally, and therefore it might be able to generate an actionable motion. Is that the consensus of the council?
Do we have enough time?
yeah, I mean, well, we can put it out on Facebook and, we'll be able to, so typically when you do a public hearing, you're supposed to advertise 10 days in advance. So we won't have that opportunity
Why not?
because, Escalon Times only goes once a week, and I can't get it in this Wednesdays. It's
Does it
too
specify
late.
you have to advertise in the paper?
Goes out.
Yeah,
Can't be,
it's in a regular publicized,
Oh.
publication.
oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be in the times at the earliest will be the 14th.
I hate to ask you this question, Councilmember Leggero. First meeting in September, too late?
So, yeah, that would be the meeting after Labor Day, which is, the 3rd. Tuesday, the 3rd, sorry.
Can't it be in October? Or wait, not October. September, yeah, September.
That's September 3rd.
Oh, September, okay. So I got my months mixed up.
Because I think by then you're going to have answers to the county question. You'll have answers to a lot of these other questions. I think if there's
And I
any way.
mean, this is not like required to do a, public hearing notice. I'm just saying traditionally, when it's a required, I think that,
Let's do it right. Let's just do
Yeah.
it. Let's just do it right.
So, in the meantime, is there any benefit of the foundation meeting with the city to hammer out some of the issues or the costs or some of the
Yeah.
details of this thing?
More done.
So that they
yeah.
can, so come September 3rd, you'll have the
yeah,
information
I
you
mean,
need?
from a city standpoint, we have some homework to do to look at, and check in regarding the property because it's technically not annexed in.
Right.
So, checking with the county on that and LAFCO,
I have
really.
one last question, I'm sorry. Now that the map's up, would this, the money, is it just gonna go to the, it's not just gonna go to the skate park itself, it's gonna go to some of the parking around it too? Is that,
Well,
I'm saying?
the money that we're giving to the Parks Foundation is strictly for the skate park.
okay.
So,
I'm just trying to see how this would look eventually.
We're about
you know?
ready to swerve it in the next issue, so I think they're related.
Oh,
But that's a good segue, though. Is that council consensus?
Well, yeah, and just to remind everybody, we have a lease on that property, and the leaseholder is okay with these two projects, the parking and the skate park. So, moving forward, as we're talking about this long-term lease, we can move forward on these specific projects. There's no other projects that we've talked to them about, the walking path that the community is interested in. We haven't talked about a soccer field, we haven't talked about putting in a ball diamond or anything in there, but I would hazard a guess that the leaseholder right now would be unwilling to do those projects.
Yeah.
So I missed what
Just
he said
again,
now.
because that interface between the ag and, right. But no, I know he's already talked about these. So, if we're okay with consensus to bring this back first meeting in September, public hearing. In the meantime, let's figure out the county question. And great opportunity to start tightening things up, between the city and the Parks Foundation. And we'll see each other then on that one, okay?
Okay.
Next item. Item number 9, discussion, long-term lease of the park property.
So at our last meeting, we had discussed the long-term lease, and the potential of a pathway, around it. I did reach back out to the, farmer, and he is not interested in any shape regarding the path around the property. And I did clarify with him, like, what we can anticipate for, crop proceeds were for weights and stuff, which I was a little off. So basically, if we did.
Current crop, not
No, for a
replanting.
new crop.
Gotcha.
So if we did the long-term lease, and we were gonna let him do all the purchasing, in the estimates that I had presented before, at the end of that 20-year lease, we had profit of 55,000. Based on our conversations, looks like it would be more along the lines of 335,000. And that's him paying for the trees.
How did that go up? It's
Because-
sixfold.
That's a lot.
Yeah, because of the cost of the price per pound that I was using and the weights that I was using. So I was using our current orchard weights, and he told me a better average of crop per acre. So 2,400 pounds per acre versus what I had been using.
You're talking about a orchard in its prime, 2,400 pounds per acre versus
Right.
an orchard in serious decline, which is
And
what we
it,
have now.
and I used 265 a pound. He says the average right now is 285 a pound. And that's a fluctuating number, so obviously, there's no guarantees in these numbers, because they do go up and
We were
down.
probably figuring, what were we figuring, for like 1,200 pounds per acre or something like that? Or,
On some of it,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
don't know, I'm really skeptical because, it sounds like this guy wants this deal pretty bad, and it sounds
No.
like, well, I've heard different things.
Uh-huh.
And I heard from a number of people that we were getting a horrible deal last time, and, I mean, it just didn't make any sense financially. And I still don't, even based on those numbers, I think that's a very subjective number, and I still don't think it's a good idea to lock that land for 25 years. That's just, I think it's poor management on our part.
but regardless of what we do, I will tell you, 2,400 pounds is a decent average, fairly decent average, for an orchard nowadays, okay, per acre.
Well, he thought it would be better, but he doesn't want to make any promises.
I know what the comments were the last meeting, and I know a couple of them came from people who I don't do know lease orchards, and they said, no, this is right in line. Some don't, and they thought, wow, this doesn't make any sense. So I kind of sort of knew who knew what they were talking about and who, with all due respect, didn't, okay? So that sounds like a fair number, 2,400, yeah.
So.
It's prime, not when it's.
So I just really kind of wanted to make that note out there that, there would be a greater earnings there than what was originally anticipated. And that was with him paying for the crop, which of course means, that there's buyout cost. I did reach back out to him last week trying to ask about the buyout options, and I didn't get a response yet. If we were to pay for the crop up front, actually in the end, at 20 years, we actually only make like 238,000, but your buyout is less too, if you wanted to do it in between there, so, I just want to kind of fill you in on those things, but he was definitely not interested in the walk jog path. And then, Councilmember Crumick had indicated about, a farmer who does, annual crops for melons, had recently signed a lease with the city of Ripon. So I did Van Groningen. So I did reach out to Ripon and they shared their lease. They're getting $1,900 a year for 19 acres. It's $100 per acre that they're getting, for the first 3 years. And then in the each year after that, it would be $425 per acre, which is $8,075.
And again, that's continuing with the lease with annual crops, right?
Yes.
What's proximity to the public?
On this crop?
Yeah.
It's out actually close to Mislin Park area.
So it's close.
It's close.
close.
Same, almost the same setup as what?
Okay.
What's the total, what does that add up to at the end of 25 years?
About 50 grand, 50 grand?
No,
25
About
an
50
acre
grand.
times 19 acres.
How much?
What's 425 times 19?
no, you would be, yeah, you would be at, I just did that wrong, it should be 47 years. It would be right around 400,000.
For how many years? For how many years?
That would be for, oh my gosh, I just did 50. Sorry.
All right.
After the first 3 years, again, 425
So
an acre.
27 instead of 47. It would be 223, 425.
So it's a little less.
Yeah.
So that's an option if, let's say, you know you're getting close to funding a park, but you don't know when. And, you know, you may be like 3 years, 4 years, 5 years off, you know.
The big thing is control is if you sign a 25-year lease with, you know, crazy big buyout, that's it. For an entire generation, there's nothing happening there on this property. And I just don't think, those numbers sound pretty close to me. Even if they were off more, I would not do a long-term lease. I would do some sort of annual crop. I mean, that's one thing. They're working with Van Groningen. Maybe there's another one. Maybe you plant corn. Maybe you plant strawberries. Maybe you plant this. I don't know. And there's a lot of work to be done. And we have 2 or 3 years left on the current deal. But I can't stomach locking that land up for 25 years.
No, I'm gonna agree with you, Peter. I think that what we could do, I know this is a problem, I know that we'd like to just get it done, sign and forget about it. And I know that would help out in terms of work that staff has to do, but I do think there's a better compromise somewhere out there. I don't know where, but you know what, that's not my job. But I do think we need to explore it more. I think, I agree with you, 25 years tying it up does limit any future, anything there, period. And I'm not sure if we'll ever have enough money to do much anyway, but at the same time, at least we'll have a chance if we want to, provided we could find something to put in there that's a little more compatible with the future that we could do something. Because you're right, if we lock it up with the almonds, we're in there for 25 to 30 years, no buts, ands, ifs about it. So it takes away any chance of anything other than the fact that you got it tied up. It's convenient, it's easy, and it's probably maybe it might be the smartest thing to do, but I do agree with you. I think it's a shame that we are tying it up for 25 years and have no possibility of any adventure at all. I think if we could do a little bit more exploring, maybe we could find something a little more compatible, maybe not as much money, but at least a little more compatible. Because you're right, that's gone. It's like we don't have it.
When did the buyout years start? 12?
Yeah, but that's a fortune.
Oh, I know.
It was
Thing out, you're
sooner than
broke.
that.
I mean, the bottom line is the last meeting, I think we had decided that.
7.
Okay, yeah. The last meeting, I thought that we had decided to give these groups some time to look at other options, which you have, and we've got time on our hands.
So the other reason why I have this on here too is, I've been thinking about where the proposed parking was of taking out the 2 trees down the long row. Can you bring that one up? And so I had concerns where the red rectangle is where we talked about doing the parking. So I had concerns with circulation there. Somebody comes in and parks along the park line, and they have to back out, and everybody's coming in and going out the same way. I had some concerns of circulation, and then the item with the skate park came up, and so then I had concerns about how are we gonna access that area? Where am I gonna, I'm not gonna have access off the road now, so where am I gonna send people there?
Do we have a turning lane for that?
No.
What are we gonna do about that?
So in talking with, with Justin, I'm proposing that we do this parking in the green square, which is, right in line with where the parking lot is supposed to be on the master plan. So, that means that whatever work that you do there is still in line with your master plan. And then the other option, or the other idea that I had was, that we put, instead of having them access this driveway off of Escalon Belota, they would actually access it from our existing parking lot through this gravel driveway already. We would have to move some fencing there for the park shop that Public Works has there. But talking with Justin, he felt like that was doable. So then your access is going to be from your current parking lot and not off of Escalon Belota.
That's a good idea, too.
Are we gonna have to have a public hearing to do the parking lot?
The parking lot is, the access is the same as what was on the proposed master plan also.
Like the skate park?
Yes.
No, I think that's an idea worth exploring. I mean, the big thing is, again, we talk about all these things. I think that we wanted a skate park for a long time. We know we need a parking lot. We know we need some relief around there. Those are the two, to me, the most important things, that we can be looking at. So what are you looking at tonight? What do you need from us tonight in terms of this proposal for the parking lot?
Well, I just want to know the council, I haven't gotten feedback from the farmer regarding this. In my mind, I think this is a less exposure to the farmer because you're only exposing the one end of it instead of, I think I had it measured out at 500 feet. And now you're at like 100 feet of his orchard that I'm exposing with the parking lot. And putting the access over to the other parking lot keeps it away from the house that's there for the renters. And not entering off of Escalon Belota means you're not entering off of into a dirt pathway or whatever to help in that matter too. So really, I just want consensus from the council that if the farmer agrees to it, that this would be the area we would do for parking versus what was originally planned for the 2 rows.
Sounds like a win. I mean, what do you guys think?
I like it.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. This has nothing to do with the lease. This is the existing lease we have, and, okay.
Correct.
Separate
Yeah,
issue.
I need to ask him if he cares if this gives us a little bit, well, by Google measurements, I didn't go out and measure the land, but by Google measurements, this gives us about 2,000, 2,500 square feet more than the other parking did.
Not already.
When I looked at the master plan and based on the area there, it should give us about
You get the answer?
40 parking spaces, 40 to 50 parking
This?
spaces. Mhm. Well, we're looking at the master plan with all the landscaping and everything.
Oh, okay,
If
yeah.
so
okay.
when I
We
counted,
count a lot more than that. Okay, I see
yeah,
what you're
when
saying.
I
Yeah.
counted the actual parking spaces here, like I went across from the skate park and counted these spaces, these, and these, That's where I came up with the 40, but granted, that's with landscape and everything in there.
I'm sure people would rather have a parking spot than a tree.
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay, does that sound okay consensus-wise?
Well, I have one more question. Councilman LaJarles asked a question I didn't get an answer to, which is, what's the difference between that parking lot having a hearing versus the skate park having a hearing, not having a hearing? Or, excuse me, the other way around. Why does one need a hearing and the other one doesn't? I'm a little confused.
So I guess because the parking lot is meeting the needs of the current recreation that's in that spot.
By whose standard?
Well, based on comments from Recreation Commission, based on comments from people that have came to the council meeting regarding parking issues.
I could probably get you, I don't know, 50 people to come in here and say they want a skate park.
If you want to hold a public hearing for this, then we can do it at the same time as we do the skate park.
The issue is, why are we having a public hearing for the skate park when we can put it on the agenda and Kurt and everybody else can announce it? And if they got an issue with it, they come down here and they express their concern about it. They are either for it or against it. I don't understand why the difference. We went through the whole process with this master plan and had the workshop and had community input, and we put this thing together, so I don't understand what the difference is between the skate park and committing funds to the skate park or committing funds to a parking lot.
Well, the city wasn't gonna commit funds to the skate park. The foundation was gonna raise the funds and fund, they were given this part of the park to do just that.
On behalf of the city.
There was no discussion of taking the money that was recouped from the state for the raw park and putting it in to that. That was gonna be funded out of the foundation. And so now you're asking the city to fund it. So you could dissolve your foundation, the city would run this, accept all the liabilities, and people need to have a say in that. And the parking lot was brought up not because of the skate park, it was put up because you needed additional parking.
Because it was part of the master plan, because that's the input that the community gave.
You know, I don't think that the map even comes to anybody's mind when it comes to parking there. If you put in more parking, they're gonna love it. They didn't, I don't think they needed a master plan to approve taking out 2 rows of trees.
I don't know if there's any harm to broach both topics at the public hearing, because frankly, I think like Mike said, I think that both are probably gonna be, once you start implementing them, they're probably gonna be both related in terms of how you're actually getting everything done out there. So I don't see any problem with, discussing the parking lot too at that time. So, bottom line.
But I mean, what we're talking about for the parking is a lot less too. We're talking about $27,000.
Right.
And it could be less than that if it's done in conjunction with the skate park project. So,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, I think it's a perfectly good idea to bring both up.
Okay.
And that way, you'll have an answer from the growers, make sure there's not an issue with that design for the parking lot as well. So,
And if staff could please somehow chart all the options with the 30-year lease from the farmer so we can get it straight, because to be honest with you, it's a little confusing. I mean, if 1 week we're this, next week we're that, just, can we have it in writing what the proposal
I
is?
thought I wasn't doing anything with that at this
Well,
point.
if we're not gonna do anything, that's fine. If we're gonna move in that direction, I'd like to have something laid down on paper that we can look at and think about. If we're not a problem.
I think we're still looking into other scenarios.
How much more time do we have on the lease with the
yeah,
ordinance?
how far are we in it?
2.5 years?
November 2021 is when it expires.
Okay, now, has the farmer stipulated at any point that he has to have an answer from us prior to the expiry date?
The answer will depend upon when he can replace the crop. So depending upon when you want to put a new crop in there, you're just gonna get less proceeds on that.
Okay,
So he would want to know probably no later than August of 2021, or,
So we have time.
I don't know for sure, but I would imagine the beginning of 2021 is when he would want to know
that's-
if he's
Fine.
gonna
That sounds right.
continue with a long-term so that he can order trees.
That's answered my question perfectly.
And weren't-
So my point is.
Weren't we the ones that reached out to him about the long-term lease?
Yes.
Because he's in the,
He's in a
3-year lease
short-term,
right now.
3-year.
Right, correct. What I would think is that that's plenty of time for us to look at our options and make a decision.
Yeah.
Can staff also look at other types of crops and what they would yield, corn or strawberries or other
You may not
things.
want unique crops, maybe some
Well-
different business will move in there, maybe like a rental company puts out big, like for example, you go to Modesto on the right-hand side, you have all those lifts there and stuff, that's just open land. I mean, there's a possibility we could look at something like that, where it wasn't so much.
Endless possibilities, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that we need to explore them a little bit more, so we don't eliminate our options in terms of that use of that land in the near future, or even the distant future, but not forever, for like 25, 30 years. I think that's way out there. And again, but it does boil down to one thing, money, and we gotta have the money to develop it.
If we sign a long-term lease, we can't do the skate park, right?
No, that's not true.
They're
The
separate.
skate park is, and the parking
Oh,
lot
that's
have
right, 'cause the
been
farmer's fine with that.
Negotiated with the farmer
It would just-
ahead of
okay.
time.
Yeah. Ultimately, all these scenarios have to do with what is the likelihood for us to have that kind of money to build a park in the next 25 to 30 years, knowing how the makeup of this town is, our desire to pass bonds for parks, our desire to have development, pay for parks. So, okay, are we okay with that?
Yes, but we
Yes.
do have a few other staff, communications.
Okay. Oh, we're home free. Man.
So, staff has been approached regarding the city's property that is located directly behind the Marvell Shopping Center. And asked if the city would be interested in selling that. So it is currently, there's two pieces to that. There is some level land, and then there's a storm basin. So obviously, we wouldn't want to sell the storm basin, and they're not interested in our storm basin.
Use it still.
Yeah, we still use that. But they are interested in the level land that's there. So I guess we pretty much need to know what staff believes is that that property was purchased or acquired primarily, the level land was the extension of Prospect when it was going to be Prospect Street. But that's pretty much a dead end because the subdivision has the wall and everything in there. That's not going to be, come to fruition. So, staff just needs to kind of know if the council's interested, if I should have this person, write up an offer or,
Can you identify the person?
well, I'd rather not at this point.
It kind of depends on who the person is, whether I'm interested.
Oh, you're right.
Do you know what
So
they
you're
want to do?
kind of asking me
Business.
to pull the trigger on something I don't know I'm shooting at.
Well, what's the harm in them
I'm all for
writing an
business.
offer?
Well, I think
I'm all
it'd be
for
nice to know
business.
who it is.
Yeah.
Why go on if it's the
Well,
wrong
when I
person?
get the offer, then you will know who it is.
Well, you can go ahead and get an offer, just get her, but, it's interesting you're bringing that up, because tonight I wanted to bring that up as well. And I was gonna bring up the fact that we're always complaining we don't have enough parkland. Why can't we convert that basin and make parking above there for little soccer teams to play in? So I thought about that too. But, that's not an end-all deal, but I just thought it's a shame we have that land, we don't really take full use of it. Because that'd be a cute little soccer park.
Do we know what kind of business?
Who's gonna pay for the maintenance?
I don't know at this point,
Everything
no.
else. You can have it over here and have maintenance or there, either way.
It would either be, light industrial or commercial of some sort.
So we don't want to put a situation where we're getting our neighbors complain about noise, dust, and all the other things, so we'd have to really know what the person wanted to
Sure.
do.
I just need to make sure that we're open to that idea.
Sure.
What else you got?
Justin has one item for you.
I need to bring you guys aware of a situation we have on at the wastewater treatment plant. Some of you guys are aware. At the wastewater treatment plant, our first 4 ponds in the front are our industrial ponds that take on our tomato and bell pepper waste. Starting July 1st, they started sending us product, and they're still doing that continuously to today. Last week, we noticed adjacent to our property, which is adjacent to Pond 4, which is the last pond in line that gets treated prior to going to the backyard, we saw some water seepage in the property adjacent to us next door.
Oh,
Our pond bottom and is an 18-foot difference from the top of their surface, so we're higher 18 feet. There's no holes, there's no gophers that have made holes that we're aware of. It's literally just a sweatiness that's about a gallon, 2 gallons a minute coming out of the ground that's puddling, which in effect is not supposed to happen and which we need to abate immediately. And we're in the process of doing that. We've contacted all the agencies that we've needed to contact. They've all visited us, and we're still in the process of getting instructions by the state of what to do and what not to do. Luckily, between QSI and the city, we've already done everything that's been asked of us to this point, but it is going to probably get a little more strict and a little more demanding in the next few days. We're not sure how it happens. We have a lot of assumptions. I really feel a lot of it has to do with the amount of snowfall and water we had this year, and the river is much higher, which I think is hurting our percolation, or at least it's stopping it, and it's making it going sideways and come up but it's just an uneducated guess. I don't really know. We're working on trying to figure out what's going on.
Very good, Terrence.
At any time, if you guys would like to check it out, I'd be happy to meet you here, go out and show you the situation. We're in contact with the property owner now. It was a little bit of a rough start, but they've been very workable at this point.
On what side of
It's
east
on
or
the
west?
It's on the east side,
On the east side, where the houses are?
in the flood. No, it's actually in the floodplain area, in between that and the bridge.
So we're in a floodplain area that we're flooding.
Correct.
Yes.
How appropriate.
I mean, if there is a good thing, at least on my part, as far as it's not sewage, it's not domestic waste, it is just bell pepper
Water.
and tomato. So, but that doesn't matter to OES. It has
Of course
potential
not.
to get into the river, so the world needs to stop.
What about additional ponds that we have available? Do we?
We do have additional ponds. I've actually met with Rain for Rent today. I'm in the process of looking, we can maybe pipe around Pond 4 and go to the backyard, which the state has approved us to do so, which is not in our permit, allow us to do, but they're allowing us to do it because of the situation we have. I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible because I know the situations that are gonna arise when that happens. I'm gonna get closer to Del Rio. I'm gonna get more odors.
Smell.
I'm gonna have more sludge in the backyard to take out next year. If we have to do it, we have to do it, but that, in my opinion, that's the last thing I would like to do.
Weren't we supposed to have a discussion with the industries in terms of mitigating some of that flow out there, and they were gonna take some of the responsibilities on their site to mitigate some of the load we're accepting? Whatever happened to that?
We have, and they have made some adjustments to their sites. Obviously, it's not enough. They're gonna need to do more. We did bring the industries out immediately after the incident happens. Luckily, Ecker Cold Storage was gracious enough. They literally stopped flow for 4 days and sent everything to Manteca. We didn't see much of a change from Premier Brands because they don't have the ability to do so, but they did restrict as
Well,
much as
the
they
Bell
could.
Pepper also doubled their capacity because it removed most of their stuff out of Manteca because of the circumstances there.
Correct.
So that could have been part of our problem as well. The abundancy, which we didn't have prior till this year, might have been some effect.
Their flows are not that heavy.
Yeah, when it comes to flows, I think the only difference that would come in effect that is with the actual fruit, how much more fruit are we getting from them that's in the waste? We're still really getting the same amount of volume, so that's not too much of effect. I really, it's just so hard to say. I mean, it's gonna get to I mean, it's been there for so long and it's such sugar sand out there. If you gentlemen have ever been out there, it just, you go water the ground for an hour and it just disappears.
Except now it reappears.
And now it's reappearing.
Have you talked, is Pace aware of this? Do they have any say?
Definitely. I mean, Andy's been, I called him right away for ideas, and he's actually got a team together right now. They have a lot of pictures of what's going on. They're trying to come up with some solutions. But again, we're all kind of coming back there. The only real solution is to bypass Pond 4, but it's just going to be a nightmare to do so.
But in the future, you're still gonna have the problem.
In the future, in immediate future, even if we didn't have a design guy, there's an obvious fix. You go and you line the ponds. You cement them to where you have, and it's not you can't leave the ponds. It's just a financial burden, but obviously if that's what's gonna have to happen, we're gonna have
What's
to do
gonna be
it.
percolation when you line them?
Well, this would be for the first industrial ponds. This would, in the back percolation ponds, we would have to keep percolation unless we go to this new system Pace would have, then we might not need as much of that percolation. We can kind of digest, maybe get rid of some of it to SSJID. That's all future and hopes. But Pace is very much on board and doing everything they can to help us.
I talked to Andy a few weeks ago, maybe just to say how's it going and all that stuff. And he said, they're working, and he did emphasize again though that it's pretty rough out there. And I said, okay, so what are the ideas? And he basically said, ultimately, you're either pregnant or you're not. You're either going to fix it or you're not going to fix it. There's not a lot of we were talking 3 tiers. I don't know. We'll see what happens when they come back with their whole thing, but it sounds like this issue is just another issue that's going to keep coming up year after year after year after year in one form or another. So, I mean, that's a shame, but yeah, that's where we're at.
But we are staying on top of it as much as we can. We'll keep you guys posted. At this point, if you have any ideas, feel free to come on out.
Just be curious to see if it seems to get worse, beginning of the
You know,
week, during the
since
week.
It's really started late afternoon on Tuesday, and it hasn't gotten worse, but it hasn't improved much either. I mean, we're able to keep up with it. It's not going to the river. It's not building up. But we were able to build a barrier to where it ponds up to. We're able to pump out. But with that being said, it's
Have we reached out to other municipalities and asked them if they have incurred the same problem ever?
I have not.
Maybe we could try that.
We're not
Maybe it's
look-
something where it's happened before,
Sure.
and they have
We
a solution.
we did last week, the pond was down as much as we could, we got 8 pallets, which was about 500 bags of bentonite. Bentonite's a type of clay you put in the water and it'll grab to a side, it'll grab a hole and it will swell. We've seen a little bit of effect, not much. I'm going to try to get this pond down as much as I can, order more, and then I have a sheep's foot, then I'm gonna roll that stuff into the banks and try to help that as well. Just trying to do everything and
See what you can
anything
do.
besides going away from the pond until they come down with I guess, cuffs and say do it.
I look around, maybe somebody's got a solution.
We're not looking at a levee collapse again, are we?
You know, honestly, I don't. We have our engineer that's been out there at times, and I want to say no, but it's hard to say because I don't know what's going on the adjacent, the property next to it. There's so many dead trees, and there's other things. Is there a dead tree that had roots that went from here to riverbank, and now they're dead? Now I've got a cavity in there where that water's
Yeah.
flowing, and now it's just coming through Sugar Sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we're sure it's our water, not other water.
Yeah.
We're sure because of the odor.
Not so much. We did take a sample, and it has the same effects that's in the industrial part on our quick sample. It's off to the lab. I'll get that back, so I'll have more better results. But we didn't start filling pond 4 until about a week prior, to which actually started bringing the level up when it started happening. And every other pond in the general area on domestic is full 24 hours a day, 365
But
a
yet no
year.
problem.
Never had an issue.
Something's wrong.
Okay. All right. Keep us updated, and are there any further staff communications?
I have a couple items, but on a much lighter note than everything else.
Okay.
One is a reminder, tomorrow is National Night Out.
Yes.
I hit the police department at 5:30 to begin our visits, and we have 8 locations to visit. And as you may have, may not seen on Facebook, Officer Smith over the weekend, we had a location that's been a problem location known to us that we've been trying to work, and he eventually was able to make a traffic stop on a vehicle that was related to that turned into a search warrant, and 3 arrests came out of his work, and we'll see how much of an impact we made, because we know they'll be back out on the street because of
Yeah.
the system, but the thing is that we took some small amounts of heroin, and we know there was methamphetamine sales going on out of the residence as well, and we've heard that was going on, we just haven't been able to get into it. And we also suspect that some of the members of that location have probably been responsible for some of our thefts that have been occurring in the area as well, but unfortunately, we didn't locate any stolen property that we could trace back. There was property we suspected was stolen, but we couldn't prove it, so. Mine's a lot lighter now.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good work, good work.
I got something in the news today. It was, did you guys stop a car that had drugs in it or something? And then I was reading the news.
I think that may have been the reference to this.
That was-
This started with a traffic stop.
That's what it's,
Actually,
okay, it was in the news.
Basically started with a traffic stop because the person had 2020 tabs on their vehicle, and the registration was actually expired in 2019. And the driver is unlicensed, so that's a misdemeanor. So he was hooked up for that. Search of the vehicle led to the location of methamphetamine pipe, some baggies of methamphetamine. Ultimately, other information was developed that led us back into the residence on a search.
Now, this individual's not from Escalon originally.
Yes, he is.
He is? Oh, what a bummer.
Yep.
That sucks.
The people we contacted at the residence, 3 had Escalon addresses, 3 had addresses outside. One was from Oakdale, and one was from Carmichael that we arrested. The others we just released.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay, any, done? Staff
That's it
reports?
for staff
Okay,
communication.
let's go to matters presented from the audience. Again, this, you can speak on any non-agendized item.
20 minutes.
However, we can't take action on any of those items. Yes. Come on up.
Shoot me.
No, he's good.
Excuse me, Rusty Fashioner. Please excuse my attire. I just got off of an airplane from vacation, so, and rushed here. I haven't even unpacked. In fact, my wife's unpacking right now, so. Several months ago, I approached you with the idea of naming Field Day at Hogan Park in honor of Emmanuel Francischetti. You approved that with the idea that I would come back to you with signage, and then we could set up a date for a dedication. Well, I have the signage. I'd like to approach you guys to show you what the Francischetti family has gotten.
Thanks, Rusty.
Ooh, how nice. Ooh, how nice. Yeah, they are. Ooh, nice.
That's very nice.
Sorry, I didn't give you anything, Tammy, to put up, but basically what you're talking about is you're talking about the Sketty field is made out of stainless steel. It measures 3 by 5. It'll go up on the back of the backstop. Right now, there's a sign up there that says "in emergency, can you please call?" If we could drop that down and put the Sketty sign there, but still keep that emergency sign there. That's one thing we'd like to have done. The second thing is, this is going to be made of bronze. This one right here looks like home plate. It'll have Emmanuel Francischetti's picture. The picture will be of him as a ball dude because he served so many giant games as a ball dude. It's going to be on a metal, it'll stand about 3 feet high, right behind home plate. It'll be on a metal stand. Brett Van Boven has volunteered his services to put both the metal stand up, to put that in, as well as the sign up above.
So what is it? The stand?
The stand is a metal stand that'll be, it's almost gonna be, it's gonna be a single post coming up, made of metal, that bronze home plate will rest upon at an angle. So when you look at it, you know, you
Okay,
walk around
and
the
then
back
this
of
is
the
what goes on the fence.
backstop.
Yeah.
And that one will hang on the backstop itself.
Yeah, the bronze will be on the outside of the field versus like right behind. I
Well,
mean,
what's gonna
it-
happen, yeah, on the backstop itself, up
Yeah.
above, will be
Yeah.
the Sketty Field, and then on the ground, right
Gotcha.
behind home plate, behind the backstop.
Behind the backstop. Yeah.
Will be this in,
That looked
you know,
good. Yeah.
and it's already been purchased, it's already been
Oh, wow.
ordered. In fact, the Sketty Field sign has already been made.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is, like I said, when I came to the meeting that you guys canceled, and I was going to approach you at that time, to tell you that everything had been ordered and that had been paid for. I'm not sure, I know that Mark Francischetti was going to approach the Lions Club as well about possibly helping pay for some of that, since Skett was an avid Lion, and I don't know if he's done that, but that was part of the process.
Or there might be some contact, but nothing determined. yet.
Okay, all right. What we're looking at is August 30th at 6:30. When I spoke to Mark and other members of the family, we felt it was best not to be there on a Saturday, Sunday, where there's going to be lots of people, make it kind of intimate. That's what they would like to have. So it'd be 6:30 in the evening.
What day is that?
It's Friday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'd be Friday evening. Mark said he wanted to say a few words that probably last about a half an hour, something of that nature. And we would love to have one of the council members present if that's possible, or however many wish to come. And then, like I said, that's kind of where we are right now. I just wanted to make you aware and see if that date was all right as far as being on a calendar.
And then just have Brett Van Boven, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just have him reach out to either myself or Justin when he's gonna go out there and make
Okay,
this.
I think he's going to do it, Justin, I think he's probably going to do it the week before the dedication type of thing. And so, at least that was the idea, that was the thought. So I will have him get in
Yeah,
touch
have him
with
give me
you.
a call, because if that stand bolts to asphalt, or if he wants to take it, I mean, I can remove some asphalt for him if he
Okay,
needs.
can I have your number?
Yeah, of course, I'm gonna give you a call.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Great work, Rusty.
No.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank
nice
you.
work.
Well, thank you.
Can we keep
Like I
this
said,
one?
sort of,
Can we
great
keep this
man.
one?
You may keep those,
Okay.
please do. And like I said, I put all of the measurements are on there for you as
Right.
well. So, and if you need to get in touch with me for any reason, please do so. Thank you very much.
Thanks for all the work.
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
I think it's a very valuable concept, you know, you forget that, you know, if you don't have some remembrances of the people who've made your town the way it is, you lose a little bit of the history. And so I think that what you're doing by preserving his name, I think it's something we probably ought to do a little more in this town, too.
Well, if I may say one
Yeah.
more thing, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I said it before, and I will say it again. I think that this city was built on the shoulders of some really, really important people, some people who gave their entire lives to making Escalon great. And I think it's sad that in this day and age, we have a tendency to look past those people and forget those people, and once they're gone, they're just a name. And I think it's really important that we do more and more of this in this town, so that the people, like I said, who are the absolute fabric of Escalon will never be forgotten.
Right. Couldn't agree with you more.
Because I just think it's really, really important. As an educator, as a person who is a historian, as a person who believes very strongly in those things, statues, dedications, things of that nature, I think are vitally important. I mean, we can't let this current generation forget who we are.
Right.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty.
Anybody else like to speak? This is your golden chance on any non-agendized item.
Mayor, Council, good to be before you tonight. Russell Fowler, Office of Assemblyman Heath Flora. It was good to be at the ribbon cutting for Jim Cookies on Sunday. Had some delicious cookies. It wasn't too hot. So I really wanted just to take a minute to say how much we appreciated Tammy and Dominique coming out to our small government relations committee. I believe it was not last Friday, but the Friday before. And they provided some really really
It
good
was
input.
last week, last Tuesday.
Monday.
I have no idea. It's all. But
Trust
they
me, it was Monday.
They really provided some
Monday or
great,
Tuesday, yeah.
great material in that meeting. We met with City of Ripon and the City of Watford. So trying to bring our small communities together. We believe there's power in numbers, and hopefully we can help you solve some issues. But I couldn't think of two better representatives of the City of Escalon than those two. So they did a great job. And looking forward to being with the city tomorrow at National Night Out. I think my van will make a great addition to the parade. So there'll be a lot of public safety vehicles in my van. So looking forward to that. Thanks to Chief for allowing us to scoot in there. So with that, I'd be happy to take any comments, questions.
Russell, maybe you can touch on some of what you guys talked about.
Oh, boy. We talked about a lot, and
Did
frankly,
you talk about the most important thing?
we did bring it up. Yes, we did.
You did bring up like it was an effort. This should be a no-brainer.
Well, you'd think that, but unfortunately, there's many parts of the state that don't. So, we brought it up and we talked about it, but we also talked about water, we talked about recycling, we talked about, let's see, what else did we talk about? But I thought it was a really great effort. Honestly, I didn't speak much, which is a rarity for me. These guys really did a great job, and they really versed well with the communities, and I think they're going to be working together, and we're just there to facilitate. So,
What can you point to that you accomplished that you think it'll go forward now?
well, as far as I think from your city's perspective, they talked a lot about recycling and how they can better utilize some recycling services. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, Ripon actually sets aside an area that the school district's nonprofit organizations run the recycling center there. So they manage it, so any monies that they receive from the recycling goes back into the school district, to those nonprofits. So basically, the city just supplies the site, and they assist with, because Ripon does their own garbage, so they assist with, of course, the hauling and all of that.
And I did want to say, they also, one of the things I thought was, two things I thought were really big is, one, the comment that was made was, oh, we have that problem too. So just sitting down as a small community and realizing, hey, we have a unique set of challenges that don't apply to Modesto or don't apply to Turlock, because you guys are different communities. You face different problems. So the way you guys can work together, and there is power in numbers. It's different when it's a population of 7,000 just in Escalon, with a population of, when we combine Waterford and Ripon and smaller cities, there is some more power in that, and people will take notice of that. And then one of the other things that they talked about was, doing projects together, how they could get more efficient bids and working with contractors. So I think it was very, very good and a great first step. I was pleasantly surprised, and we're definitely going to have more, and I'm sure we'll rotate out who represents Ripon, Escalon, and I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to sit in one of those meetings, so. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief might need a ride with you tomorrow night.
Well, hey, there's a lot of room in the middle because there's no middle seat, so he can just pull his scooter right on up.
Oh,
So it is available. Make sure he just gets a round light for the top of my car, though. Put it on top.
thank you very much, Russell. Thanks again for coming down tonight. Anybody else like to say their piece before we move on to administrative matters? Yes.
Dave Willis, 425 Sultana. When you were talking earlier about the people with cars and motorhomes, something sprung to mind that maybe you could use the fire department, because in some of these places I've seen, if the fire department had to get in there to fight a fire, they would have trouble.
Excellent point.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
Very good point.
There you go, Dominique. Tag team.
Throw that in there.
They don't.
They won't.
Fire department doesn't do any. I mean, we could use them as a reference in our letters, but they won't take any action. They refer everything to us.
Of course, they'd have to work. That'd be terrible.
Anybody else like to say their piece or 2 cents worth? No? Seeing none, we'll proceed to administrative matters. Item number 10, consideration of approving property tax allocation agreement for annexations with San Joaquin County.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is a agreement for our property tax allocation. It was up on July 31st. The proposal is for an additional 7-year term with the same split that we currently receive, which is 36.6% of property tax goes to the city, 63.4% goes to the county of the 1% property tax, or until we reach 18,000 in population. There's been some variations over the last few contracts. There's been some change. In 1996, it was our population up to 20, once we reached 20,000. And then in 2005, the agreement changed where it said you can accommodate the population of 20,000. And then the 2012 agreement went back to current population based on the California State Department of Finance when we get to 18,000. So neither the city nor the county have any notes exactly of why these changes went about in those agreements. The assumption is that this last agreement in 2012 was a compromise of not going back to the 20,000, but staying at the 18,000 and being when we reach that, not when we can accommodate that. This is not, for the city of Escalon, it's not a huge change in the words, because once we for us to hit 18,000 based on our slow growth, it's going to be quite a few years. It is more of an issue for city of Ripon. I did ask their city administrator if there was any value for us to stand united, and he didn't feel that there was at this time. I didn't get that pushback from him. So that is why it is before you tonight.
Who made the decision that it just dropped 18?
Well, so our current agreement reads 18.
I thought our past one was 20.
our past in 1996 was at 20.
When did it change and who
In
made the change?
2005, it went to can accommodate 20,000. And then in 2012, it went to back to the population being 18,000, when it exceeds
Okay,
18,000.
but who made those changes?
Well, it was negotiated between the city and the county.
So why did we give up ground?
I wasn't part of that negotiation, the last contract, and I don't have any notes. The county, the person that negotiated with the county is not there either. They don't have those notes either.
Sounds like the railroad.
They think that it was a compromise because the 2005 says when you can accommodate a population of 20,000. So that would mean if you've annexed land in that's gonna be able to accommodate that 20,000, then you're gonna change to
I get it.
an 80-20 split
On the
versus what we
percentages, the
get.
36.6 and the 63.4, what does that translate into money? How much dollars for the last year?
In property tax revenue,
How much did we get for 34% and how much for 36% and how much did they get for 63?
Well, the difference is
Whatever the
it's,
budget says.
it's 20%, if we exceed 18,000. Our cut's 20%. Up
Correct.
to 18,000, it's
I got it.
36.6.
I see that. I
so
got it.
Significant difference.
But
Right.
again, do we know what the numbers are?
no, I don't. It's in my budget, but I don't know it offhand.
It'd be interesting to know how much money that is. And then the question I would ask next then is, what are they doing for us we can't do for ourselves? Would it be cost effective based on how much money they're getting?
Well, we don't really have, I mean, we have to negotiate with them
Why?
on this contract because they're the ones that collects the property tax. They're the ones that have the authority to collect the property tax.
So it's not
Part
even
of
that.
their 60% covers a lot of your human and health services, your health department,
Jail, the courts.
the courts, the jail, the county hospital.
So we're not giving them anything, they're giving us something.
Yeah, well, a lot of the other cities are really having a struggle with their agreements because they want more than the 80-20.
Can't blame them.
So we happen to be in a fortunate position at this time.
You're going to want to remind the council this is an actionable item. If we want to approve it, I will need a motion.
So moved.
Oh, yeah. I just want to remind them that sooner or later tonight, we'll need to have a motion on this one. But if anybody from the audience would like to chime in, please.
Gary Haskin, 471 Cabernet Court. We're talking those percentages, they add up to 100%, but we all know we don't get 100% of the tax dollars. I mean, we don't even get 36.6. We get 36% of what?
What is collected?
No. That would say we got 36 cents for every dollar in property tax. We don't. What's that, what's the base? What does the state take away first?
Everything.
Well, it's the 1% that we split. It is,
Okay, so of that 1%, we get 36.6% of 1%.
yes.
Thank you.
There you go.
Any further discussion?
I move on staff's recommendation.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the property tax allocation agreement for annexations with San Joaquin County. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 11, request for extension on steel beam outdoor storage at 1455 First Street.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're aware, this item, we've discussed it a few different occasions over the last few months, and Stacy Coleman with Coleman and Sons Transload is here to discuss this item with you. We went ahead and provided all the backup information from 2014, showing where the city came from in that manner when it was Escalon Lumber with the lease with the Colemans. And so if you have any other questions, the only thing that the city staff would be requesting at this time is that if we do move forward with an extension, that we can identify a deadline for the applications to be turned in. They do have the intent of submitting applications and going through a process, which would include, as we've discussed, a zoning amendment, updating our municipal code to allow for a conditional use permit approval in the C2 zoning district, and then as well would need to go through the process for a use permit, which would go to Planning Commission for review and approval. So if you have any questions,
How
I'd be
long is
happy
the
to answer.
request for the extension?
At this point, Stacy can probably give you that information. Currently, the letter that is in your packet was given till August 10th, which was 45 days from when we sent them the letter.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, hello. Stacy Coleman, 28141 Lone Tree Road in Escalon. We are asking for an abeyance on this so that we have time to get all the paperwork together, although going through the application, it's, what are you currently doing with the property and what would you like to do with the property? Well, we'd like to keep doing what we've been doing with the property for the last 10 years. It hasn't just been 5 years. We've had this property for 10 years. Also, I wanted to clarify something, and I do have some information for you that might help. I apologize, I'll need to write these.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You need a copy or?
When you're done, you can look at it.
Several times, the comment has been made that the Escalon lumberyard has been sold. And as you can see on this first page, the Escalon lumberyard in its entirety has not been sold. There are 2 small parcels that the Grassi family has purchased, where the store sits, and then the little strip along Prospect. And then the other 2 parcels that are highlighted in pink are what we are purchasing from the Schmidt family. And just recently, we did purchase and close on the little house there on the corner of Roosevelt. And as you can see, they are, or hopefully you've seen, they are cleaning everything out of the house, so it should be less of an eyesore soon. And we will use that as our office. So it's not the entire thing that's being sold, and there's been some confusion in several different discussions and in watching these meetings about that. Also, I wanted to update you on what our site plan, if you will, is for our dirt lot. We are going to make some improvements with it, fencing and landscaping and such. I understand that part of the biggest issue with us staying there and doing what we've been doing for the last 10 years is that it's not retail at all, and that the truck traffic will cause wear and tear on Roosevelt. And I did want to speak to that in that, like I said, we've been there 10 years, and the road is still pretty darn good. We're more than willing to make whatever compromise we need to help mitigate any damage to the road because of the trucks. But also, I wanted to clarify that the trucks, in normal circumstances, when trucks are loaded to their fullest capacity, which is termed as cubed out, they're upwards of 80,000 pounds. Because we no longer use this yard for just straight steel storage. We use it as a transitional yard for fabricated material that's coming in and then going right back out. It's job specific. The way they make this steel, we usually can't get a full load on. So we'll have 40 to 50,000 pound trucks or less, but they're rarely ever any more than 50,000 pounds. We do have access out onto First. We do have a license to cut the corner there on the property that Mr. Grassi bought. Also, we just completed a big job in March, so we haven't had any truck traffic or any material in that yard for the last 4 months, and we don't foresee having any material in that yard, probably until the end of the year, if not past that. So the use in this yard would be very sporadic. It's not full-time. It would not be maxed out. It would come and go when we are doing it. So it's, you know, it's not a full steel beam storage as it was in the very beginning. So we have, you know, tried to lessen the use on the roads and such. But we would like to be able to continue to use it. I don't understand, I'm having a difficult time with the process of being thrown out after 10 years. And we are buying it. That's not going to go away. So we're not going anywhere. We're more than willing to make it look nice. More than willing to, we're in the process of cleaning it up right now to grade it and have it rocked, fence it, work with Mr. Grassi. I mean, he's cleaned up, you know, his portion like crazy, and it looks great so far. So that's going to be a great neighbor. And considering that we're right up against the railroad tracks, compare the noise. You can't, you know, nobody can be louder than the railroad. And I don't, you know, can't imagine anybody else wanting to be parked up against the railroad tracks as any kind of retail in there. So I was encouraged when I listened or watched the last meeting that Dominique stated when you asked, Mr. Mayor, what the zoning was there, that the municipal code had been changed to allow other businesses and things in there with just the conditional use permit. So we'll compromise, we'll do what we need to do to be able to stay. If we have to get a zoning amendment to get the conditional use permit, that's what we'll do. We're just asking for a fair shake, and considering the fact that we've been there 10 years, it's odd to think that all of a sudden, because somebody else is putting another business beside us, we need to go.
Can I clarify
So-
something? So you keep saying you've been there for 10 years.
Yes.
But the city wasn't made aware or didn't realize you were there until 2014, when they came to you and said you needed a business license because you were operating in the city without a business license. So the 5-year, just to be clear, is when the city became aware of the business being operated there, correct? So the 10 years you operated there without a business license for 5 years, and then it came to the city's attention, and then you got the business license, and then they're recognizing the type of business that was carrying on. That's when you were also notified you needed a conditional use permit, correct? Do I have that
No,
right?
we weren't told we needed a conditional use permit at that time. Mr. Schmidt came in and asked if we could get a temporary use incidental to his business.
So when we found out that they were doing business there, in those conversations, it was also disclosed that the railroad spur was going away, and we had it was staff's understanding that the business was not going to be able to use it as of like August. So we did offer to do a conditional use only until August of that year. And then we were asking them to leave. At that point is when Mr. Schmidt did come in and ask the council to find a way to help it work out.
Right, and that was what your paperwork had.
Correct.
in
That was
the-
a conditional business license.
Right.
And staff wasn't
As part of-
aware
as for his
that
one,
the lease agreement had a purchase in it, that there was a purchase with that lease. That wasn't came to light to us until recently, when we've been going through this.
Okay, correct. Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that, well, maybe I assumed wrong. So specifically tonight, what we're looking at is a possibility of extending that date, where we would have to move everything out until after August 10th. Now, I made the assumption, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that you haven't filed for the conditional use permit.
Not yet,
Yeah,
no. No, I
okay.
don't, and
So I thought maybe
and
you
so
had,
We've been in
and the-
contact. No,
okay.
we've been in contact.
So it's- yeah, so it's
on
not a matter
filling
of
out
the
the paperwork and stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so it's not a matter that the process has already been started.
We've gone over applications, and then Stacy's wanted to come by and go over them, because if you're not familiar with how to fill them out, there are some areas that we need to
Right.
provide guidance in on
Okay.
what type of information needs to be
Okay.
submitted. So there's definitely been interest, and that's what she's been here for the last few times talking about.
Right.
Because those have processes, so they're gonna take a while to process, and that's why we put it in the staff report that it would probably take 3 to 4 months to get that done, because it's an ordinance amendment. So it will take 2 readings, a public hearing, 30 days to go in effect. And we're going to try to, you know, if when it goes through, work the conditional use permit as best we can at the same time.
So by granting an extension, and by the way, that, we would need, this would be a motionable item to grant the extension. And again, if you don't want to grant the extension, then there's no motion to be made. But is that therefore an implication that we are therefore signing off on this project?
So if you're going ahead and extending the deadline,
Yeah.
then they would move forward with submitting their paperwork. So we just ask as staff that you would give a deadline on the paperwork. That way,
So I think,
that way we continue to move forward.
but their motion is not an indication that the process is a
No,
guarantee to the
strictly on the
Pullmans.
extension.
Okay.
Granting an extension, because they were currently put on a 45-day notice that we wanted to have the parcel vacated by August 10th.
Right.
When would this come before for the final decision of yes, they can do that?
So
Or
there's
no, they
two-
can't?
There's 2 parts. We have to do a zoning amendment first because C2, which is retail commercial, currently does not allow for outdoor
So
storage.
that's an actionable item.
So that would have to go before planning commission and city council for approval, and we would have staff recommends that the code would be updated for approval of a conditional use permit, so we would update that accordingly. And then after that, they would go through and apply for their conditional use permit, and that would go before planning commission for review and approval.
And then it comes here?
Conditional use permits are usually only done through planning commission.
When did the property sell, or when did you purchase the property? You said you just closed on the
We started
office.
purchasing the property. We've been renting the property since 2009, and just to speak to what you said, and not to be cheeky or anything, but we weren't hiding the steel. And also that the rail spur use did not go away in August, as you stated. I don't know what prompted you guys to send the letter, but the rail spur use did not go away in August of 2014. They moved us later on to a larger spur because we had so much business, but the spur was still available to us if we needed it. So we rented it from the Schmitz from 2009 until 2014, at which time we signed a lease to purchase. And I believe it was March of 2014.
So were those lease payments towards the purchase of the property?
Yes, 100% of the lease payment goes towards the purchase. So when we make the last lease payment, we own the property.
Sure.
Okay, and you closed on the parcel with the office on it, or that you're gonna turn into the office? Okay, so that one's closed. Are there 3 separate parcels that you're purchasing, and that one is the first one to have been purchased, or have you purchased all 3 of them and they're in escrow, or they've closed? Or?
The house, we paid cash for, so it closed immediately. And that was with a different company. And then the other 2 parcels that the Schmitz still own, I believe we have 8 years left on our lease.
Okay.
And that was something that they wanted to do because they wanted to maintain ownership so they could keep doing what they were doing. And that just didn't work out for them.
Yeah.
So,
I remember that whole time, 2014, we were talking about this whole subject. And of course, the whole purpose of doing this was incidental to their, business, and of course, obviously, we had to deal with a lot of, people less than happy about it on Roosevelt as well as First Street. And, but it was one of those things where I, tried to be nice guys, and so that's what we tried to do. Would you have any idea why, though, so in other words, I think the intent, if I may speak, hopefully, for the council at that time, the intent was, of course, to allow this to happen, you to be there for the Schmidt's sake, primarily. Would you have any idea why, though, that part regarding the lease to own was omitted
I have
at the
no
time?
idea. Randy came in. We didn't even know he had come in,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. So I have no idea why he didn't advise you guys that that was
I mean,
the situation.
that would have been, at least for me, that would have been germane to the decision. That's, you know, so that's where I'm coming from on that one.
Yeah.
So like I say, my big concern at this point is I don't want to inadvertently have us getting backed into something by approving an extension tonight. You know, you can see the timeline of this. Okay, well, we got backed into the agreement, and now we might be getting backed into this extension, and I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Another question, where are we at? And I didn't want to get off this topic, but it is sort of germane at this point. The truck route on First Street. I know Roosevelt's not a truck route. Is there still a truck route on First Street?
Technically, First Street's not a truck route either. We've only identified McHenry and the Jackson 120 as our truck routes.
Okay. Now,
Two main.
Now, it's my understanding, after talking with the Francises years ago, that the reason there is actually an entrance from P&L or an exit from P&L to McHenry is that was what the city required them to put in because they could not, the city would not allow them to do truck traffic down Roosevelt. Would you see down the road, is there any way to require the Coolmans to do the same thing so that we preserve the roads that are not truck routes?
Require them to
I don't
put
know.
a
I don't know where and
concrete-
how, but to
Yeah.
put a truck route in or some kind of route where they can have ingress and egress other than the residential streets.
I
Go
don't
to a
know.
use permit. I mean, we would have to find something that would be,
Okay, but if Roosevelt, if that area
Yeah.
is C2,
Mhm.
technically it's not residential.
Right.
I mean, the plan I was told was
Mm-hmm.
eventually that whole area to be retail. That's clearly not happening.
Right,
Even with what the Grassi family is putting in, it's
Mhm.
not retail
Yeah.
either. And P&L has transfers that run up and down Roosevelt all the time, depending on how busy or who's in the
Sure,
way
sure,
of the
yeah.
driveway. So it's not just us. I mean, it's just, that is what that area is, because that's what it was years ago.
Mhm. So let me take this back to staff. Should Roosevelt therefore be a truck route, rightfully speaking?
Well,
I mean, I know it's not built to be one, but Justin?
I don't think it should be, no.
Okay.
Now, see, this is the type of thing that seems to me should be a public hearing. Get all the input from all the surrounding neighbors and stuff.
which it
Which
would,
would
it
happen
will
at-
be with the zoning amendment.
There you
and-
go.
Yeah.
will happen then, yeah.
Yeah.
Because so I'm still a little unclear here. What was the triggering event that has led this? The sale of the property from Schmitz to Grassi?
Because the primary location of the Escalon lumber, the office part, sold.
Okay.
And that was, the letter for the incidental non-conforming business was that if the property sold, then the incidental use would go away.
Because the Escalon lumber was the primary use, and so this became the temporary incidental.
Gotcha.
I think that this is one of those situations where, yeah, it seems a little sticky, but the reality is, yeah, they've been operating there for 10 years, and, you know, Ms. Kuhlman just said they've slowed down a little bit, and they do, even at their busiest time, I think she told us they do 1 truckload a day, right, in your busiest time, and they're going to put up fencing and nice plants and stuff, and I just think that, you know, I'm totally in favor of this. I don't see retail going in there. It's right next to a train, a train track. So I don't know what, I would make a motion that we approve the extension, and I don't know what the deadline would be, but what do you guys think? What does staff think? How long does it take? Couple months? A month?
So I believe that she's asking for the extension through the process, which would be potentially 3 to 4 months. So the deadline that we would ask that if council was gonna grant that extension would be that they turn in their permit, all their documents, their requests.
And then
their
another question I
application
had is,
within a certain time period,
Okay.
whether it be 2 weeks or,
Well, that's a lot to get into motion, but I'll try to do it. But, but if we approve the extension, then all they have to do is do their process and go to the planning commission. That's it. They don't come back here.
No, they
It'll-
will come back here for the zoning amendment.
Oh.
Zoning amendment first, that goes to planning
First.
commission and then council.
But the
and then they
next
go to
one-
Conditional use permit.
But the next one doesn't come to us.
Next one won't
Okay.
come back, yeah.
All right. So I mean, I would,
so your motion is, yeah, so your motion is that, to grant them
I would
an
make-
extension until the end of the rezone and conditional use permit.
Process pending submittal of
Contingent
your
on-
application.
Contingent on the submittal of their application within, I don't know, what kind of time frame? Yeah.
Yeah.
so moved.
Because you can't, you can't process it until we have applications.
Motion's been made. I do need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been moved and made to, who's got that down?
I
Yes,
do.
we have some
Motion has
discussion.
been made to allow the extension of the removal of the outdoor steel beam storage until the end of the zoning change and conditional use permit, contingent upon the applicant turning in their application within 10 days.
Okay, within 10 days. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion on the table?
All right, so this motion would allow time for the conditional use permit to go through the process. Go to the planning commission, get input from planning commission, and then ultimately, if it's approved at planning commission, it would need to come up to us for the ordinance, or is the ordinance gonna be on a separate track?
So the first part is the zoning change to allow a conditional use permit of the storage use in that area. So it will go to planning commission first, they will make a recommendation to the council, and it will come to the council to make that zoning change.
With the public hearing.
With the public hearing.
On both.
Thank you.
Then, if that is passed, then the applicant would go back to the planning commission for the conditional use permit once that's effective.
All right.
Because they
And-
can't apply for a conditional use permit unless that zoning ordinance is approved
Okay,
and is in effect.
right. Okay.
So, and that would basically consist of like things like outdoor storage, stuff like that, or.
It would be allowing for outdoor storage in the C2 zoning district with approval of a conditional use.
Okay.
And that's the thing I think is important to mention is the conditional use permit is still in place. And so if in the future a situation like this arose again that didn't make as much sense or wasn't favorable to the planning commission, they could say,
If they
we
did
don't
not meet
approve
all
that.
the conditions.
Sure.
Yeah.
If they don't meet all the conditions.
Put them on notice to either correct the situation or you could bring it back to planning commission to have it pooled.
Right. So there's, I think there's still some, safety net there or whatever.
Yeah. So what I want to make sure is that, so basically, this sounds so like we've been backed into this whole thing all the way along. Because 2014, we decided this was going to be a temporary situation. So now we will essentially be reversing that situation. It's going to be a somewhat permanent situation. We cannot guarantee, however, that the zoning will approve. We can't guarantee anything else, along the process. We can't guarantee what the planning commission is going to do. We can't guarantee what we're going to do. The only thing we are saying, therefore, but with this motion, is we know there's a lot of issues with this. We know there's a truck issue, on the street issue, that's going to be really, really difficult to resolve, if possible at all. And again, I hate to bring up P&L again, but I think we're going to have a bit of a situation when they say, well, we'd have to build a truck route, and yet they don't. And I see that issue coming up as well. To be brutally honest with you, I felt that, I don't want to be negative towards any business anywhere at any time or anything like that. But I do know the spirit of which this decision was made in 2014, and I still support that original spirit versus, okay, now let's find a way to make this work. Let's go through a bunch of different zoning changes. Let's try to convince everybody around that, okay, well, don't worry about the trucks coming up and down the street. And that's why personally I'm opposed to this motion.
What happens if we don't approve it? They go out of business? They have to leave? They have to close up?
No, I think all they would have to do is just vacate.
So they
Okay,
can't do their steel business
Be able to
anymore.
store it there.
No,
So-
they would just need to move it out by August 10th. That's all.
In which case, they don't
They
do,
can still go through the
Oh,
process.
yeah.
That's what we do for our business, though.
Mhm.
And we are from Escalon.
Mhm.
We've lived here for over 60 years. And we would prefer to do business
Sure.
as a family, small business, which you yourself said was what you're looking for, but yet,
That's why this is a tough one for me.
yeah. And the other thing is any business you put in there, which you won't put in our ground because we will own it, they have to get deliveries by trucks. So you're not gonna keep trucks off those roads. If you finally get all the people in those houses to move out and retail businesses go in, how are they gonna get their deliveries?
Yeah.
So there has to be some sort of get-to point in a truck on Roosevelt or First Street.
Right. So what you're suggesting is probably we're ultimately looking at rezoning that entire area anyway. I mean, I don't know how we're going to kick a bunch of people out. That sounds like a lot of work.
I don't think any of that'll happen. I think that, I mean, those people, you know, they chose to live there by a railroad track. That's the thing. The railroad was there way before those houses were there. And so those people, I think it sounds like you're concerned about the people and the trucks and the roads and all this, but I mean, this is what it is. I mean,
It was
really this comes down
originally
to
zoned
if we're ending these people's, you know, if we're going to end their operation there or if we're going to let them continue operating. It's really one or the other, I think. That's what it sounds like the decision is. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever considered an additional business in concert with you're currently doing? I mean, would you ever think about maybe doing something else in there besides that with the steel? Something else maybe?
Yeah, possibly with the steel. I mean, we do have, we do some fabrication in another yard ourselves. So we do have a lot of what we call cutoffs, which are things that individuals could use for small projects.
Okay.
Of the steel beams, and they just kind of pile up because we don't have time to do anything with them. We also have a lot of lumber that is
crating?
used as, pardon me?
From the crating?
Yeah, no, there's no crating, but from the dunnage.
Oh, okay.
Which is really nice for firewood. So yeah, I mean, we could add that to this, but we're still gonna need to be there
No,
in
I
order
get
to
it.
do it.
But also, you're going to own the land. So if we
Yes.
want, if we want retail in there, we want something, they're going to have to go through you guys anyway. I mean, it's your land, and you're operating on it. I just don't see how we could get in the middle of this and go, you can't do that.
Well, in regards to the people that live in the houses, that was originally zoned M1. So the majority of them, or their parents probably, lived there when it was M1, when there was storage, outdoor storage and so on and so forth. So they're used to it.
Yeah.
So I just want to remind you, the other people in the audience might want.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, is there any additional input that anybody would like to add to this?
I've already introduced myself, and I like small businesses too, don't get me wrong. In your thoughts and when you're going through your decision-making, remember C2 generates money for the city theoretically. This generates nothing. It's going to use the roads, and I know it's a small business. You felt like you're being backed into it, you are. They will always own it, that's fine. Maybe they can find some C2 people too. But you have cut off a section of the city that's not going to rejuvenate any revenue for the city. We're fighting like heck to get RVs out behind you, every little thing we can do for the skateboard park, and then we just, we do things that shoot ourselves in the foot. And I would just ask you to think about that when you're making your decisions. Thank you.
Gary Haskin, 471 Cabernet Court. Did you mention fabrication? Like in industrial
No.
or manufacturing?
Not really, no.
Okay, because the impression I get is when you're talking manufacturing, are we leading right into an M zone or an industrial zone? So you need some clarification on that. And so it doesn't get backed into again.
Yeah, would that solve it if you just rezoned it you didn't change the ordinance, but you do a rezoning of that that would meet their needs?
It'll just cost more money and take a little longer to do.
But
would cost more.
But we don't have to, it's not like I guess, anyways, I'm gonna do.
The only thing I would say is that I think we could allow them to search for solutions that are gonna be problems with the community. And they can go through the process. At the end of the process, if they've mitigated everything that needs to be mitigated, I don't have an issue with it. Now, during the process, if they can get through that gauntlet of wonderful things are gonna happen to them, then I think that's fine. But, there's gonna be a process. They have to mitigate the road, how they deal with that. Landscaping, they pretty much talked a little bit about. And then they also brought up, I asked her, and I think you might wanna think about retail business, one or two in there, just to kinda supplement what you're doing there. Might help you out with your situation too. I think the road, we talked about this before, the road and the trucks is your biggest issue, as far as I'm concerned. That's what everybody's gonna hang their hat on.
Has there been a lot of complaints to the city about them? From people who live on Roosevelt or?
I haven't taken them. I know that in 2014, that I think may have been one of the other reasons why it was brought to our attention about the trucks going down there.
In 2014, there was a
And that's why
complaint?
they were reached out to for a business license.
Have people complained to you guys or contacted your office saying, hey, you guys are too loud? And you've been doing this for 10 years.
But of
and
course
there's
I-
no new problems. No new problems are going to come up with it. We rezone this or we do whatever. Nothing's going to change.
Yes and no, because the implication to all the other parties that this was going to be ending when the Schmidts sold the property.
What
And
other
that
parties?
was the promise that was made.
What other parties?
To what, the Schmidts, to.
Why do they care? They're still going to get their money.
Yeah, but still, but to everybody else involved, they were knowing, and I remember that at that time too. The concession by those who had an issue with it goes, fine, okay, we get it, for Schmidts. It's for Schmidts, we'll deal with it.
Who is this
Nobody's
person?
dealing with it.
Who are these parties and why do they matter now?
Because they're still citizens of the town.
So we made a promise to them saying at the end of this, we're not gonna follow.
promise.
That
It was
was
an
the
agreement. It was a
condition,
legal-
that was
legally
the
binding
agreement.
agreement.
That was what was sent to Schmitz and the Colemans, was that if the property sold, then that incidental use would go away.
Well, I won't continue on, but they've been doing it for 10 years. Nothing's gonna change if we do this, in my mind, sitting up here as a member of the city council. The roads are not damaged by what they do. She's explained it. She's given us a great plan. She's gonna beautify the property. It's crazy that we're considering just saying no and see ya.
So you've got 8 more years of payments on those parcels to Schmitz, right? Okay. And I assume there's no penalty if you paid it off sooner, you just pay them whenever, or otherwise just terms of the agreement is the next 8 years, you finish paying it off and you take possession.
Correct.
So I get the issues with, I see the benefit to you as a business, I see the benefit to the Schmitts. I'm not seeing the benefit to the community, and I get that. But I don't think that we are in a position to where we just say no and not grant the extension. I think you should be allowed to go through the process. I think that's your right. You go through the process, you go through planning, whatever conditions they may think are appropriate, great. We can get feedback from the community. Things have changed over the last few years since since you've been operating there and since the original agreement was entered into. And we'll get some fresh, input from the community and the affected parties. Take a look at the road, see what they can handle, if there's something that has to be done to upgrade that. But I don't feel like we're in a position to just cut it off and say no at this point. So we let you go through the process, and we kind of no guarantees at any stage of it, and we just see where it goes from there.
Right,
So-
yeah, and like I said before, we're more than willing to, do our part to keep the road
Well, we're all gonna learn something through the process.
nice, so, okay. All right, I appreciate it,
Well,
thank
my
you.
motion's still in play, right?
Yeah, we still have
Yeah,
the.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Motion passes
3-2.
3-2. I think that I heard him, yeah.
And Murphy.
Okay, you got your extension.
Just let it go.
And we are on to council communications.
Yeah. Hey.
And Councilmember Crummett.
Thank you, Mayor Swift. I just want to say again, really quick, good job to Councilman Alves for the RV parking behind it. It's a great idea, and it turned out good, so good job. As far as the skate park goes, I really do appreciate Councilman Legero's passion for it and how hard the people have worked, and that he's, representing the people and their interests and the amount of time and money that's been raised. And this is my ultimate kind of opinion on that, is that the money's there. It's available. This project has been in the works for a long time, and I don't see us ever having the 15 million to do the whole park, and we can do it kind of part by part here. So I think that was good discussion on that, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that over the next couple meetings, but that's all I have tonight.
Councilmember Crummett, thank you very much. Councilmember Legero.
I'll echo the kudos to Mayor Pro Tem Alves on the RV parking. That was one of those thinking outside of the box opportunities to generate some revenue when it was sorely needed, so nice work.
Thank you.
Now work on that prevailing wage.
I'm working on it.
Not applicable to 30,000 or less populations. I think that'd be great. Just back on the skate park for a minute. When you think about community support for something like that, when you look at the $60,000 that they've raised, and you take an average of $10 donation from people involved, that's 6,000 individuals giving up $10 to see this through. And I think that $10 donation might be a little bit high for the individual donors that have donated to that project. So when you look at that, you've got almost the population of the city, each has contributed $10 to this park. So that's a good indicator of the group of people that are dedicated to see this through. So we've had workshops, we've had lots of conversation on it. We see the people that donate money, you listen to them, keep asking, when's it gonna happen, when's it gonna happen? We have an opportunity to take care of two major projects out there that will benefit the community at large, and I think I really appreciate the input and the drive to try and see this to the finish line, so thank you for that. That's it.
Councilmember Legero, thank you very much. Councilmember Merkin.
I think in the interest of brevity, I will pass.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot. Mayor Pro Tem Alves.
All right, well, as far as the parking lot, we got lucky, and I appreciate staff's input and effort. They've done a decent job to keep that thing up and running. Hopefully, we can continue with the new addition. Next question is solar proposals. How are we doing on those? We get anything back yet
For what?
for solar?
Oh, no, I have not gotten any solar back.
All right, that takes care of that problem. But there are people out there that have contacted me that are interested in giving some quotes on the 7.5 acres, make a solar farm out there in addition to doing some stuff here. I think comment was made about the interior over there for solar panels, which I would disagree with because they should go on the building, not over there. Because the solar panels are gonna be there for a duration of 20 or some odd years based on the lease, and that parking situation could go away if it had to, especially if we had a new one in town later. So I don't think that's such a great idea. The old city hall, how are we doing with that?
We're not doing anything with that.
Nothing? It's pretty dead?
Lear has that project.
I'm fully aware of that. My question is, where are we with it?
Waiting on him.
Waiting on him.
I see him doing a lot of trenching for the underground inside, which is nice to see. So that's what I've seen.
seen him do
He has
some
his permits
digging.
for his civil improvements, so
Huh?
he has his permit for his civil improvements, which is all of that
Yeah,
ground
Sorry,
work
didn't
and
mean to
stuff, so he's
That's
moving
okay.
forward with that.
yeah.
Okay. As far as the issue with the prevailing wage, maybe staff could write a letter and we could all sign it and send it to the neighboring towns our size or smaller, and suggesting that maybe they could contact their local elected officials in an effort to do this collectively, which I think would get us a better return. What do you guys think?
You guys okay with that?
All right. So if staff would please, I'd appreciate it.
Good deal.
All right, and then let's move right down the line of things here. Skate park. The bottom line for me, the skate park, if the people want it, we'll find a way to do it. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be a lot of issues. I know people are concerned about where the funding's coming from, where it's not coming from, and all that. But you know what? If there's a will, there's a way, but you gotta have the will first. What else? Oh, the baseball diamond and putting up the signs for Mr. Franciscetti. I'm hoping that Justin, in your free time, which I know you got tons of, that you can find a chance to get by and fix those fences on those backstops before we put those gorgeous signs on them. Because it's gonna look pretty tacky, putting those beautiful signs on those the cyclone fences that people have abused. I mean, there's pockets in those things you can park a car in. It's not a good representation of our community. And I don't blame you for it, I'm just suggesting that we need to fix it. It looks horrible. I mean, I went as a kid, went out to play baseball in those parks. It was something to be proud of. I'm not proud when I walk out there now, I'm embarrassed. So if we can somehow get that cleaned up, that'd be great. I know you're busy, but hey, like there's a will, there's a way. The parks. Sanchez Park has become the resting place of everybody's dog's poo because they're too damn lazy to pick it up. And I think that's gotta be addressed somehow. I know that we have doggy bags in different parts of the park, which is great, but I know there's signs about litter, which is another issue. But if there's some way, anybody's got an idea that we can bring to their attention those people that have no consideration for the rest of us to pick up their dog mess. Now, I almost caught one the other day. She had a dog about as big as that desk. And sure enough, she didn't pick up anything. By the time I got over there, she was gone. But I won't forget the dog.
Take a picture.
Yeah, it's a monster.
It's poaching.
My shovel couldn't do it. Oh, fence, let's see what else do I have left to do
He's
here.
serious, he carries his shovel, I've seen it.
And then the other thing is, the bottom line in everything we do up here is for this community. Sometimes we're right and sometimes we're not, but we do the best we can. So anytime something comes up here, I try to support it unless, it's blatantly wrong. So that's just where I'm coming from. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Els. I just have a couple things really briefly. I'd like to, once again, just think about a lot of those names that we have in this town, and I know we're going to be renaming the A-Field Sket or Sketty Field. You know, there's other names out there. I get asked about, hey, when are we going to put something up for Wayne Gushy? When are we going to put something up for the Orlanos?
Find a person to generate the
Yep.
effort and they're gonna do it.
And so I think that anytime somebody wants to take the bull by the horns and try to keep the history of this town alive, it's a
How
very
about
good
an
thing.
honor park, where we address all those
That'll
issues?
work.
An honor
That'll
park,
work.
where we put people in this community, somehow we recognize them in an area we call the honor park. And we'll come up with some kind of recognition, maybe a brick, maybe a plaque, something. But we should have an honor park for our community, for our heroes.
Staff, can you guys have an honor park next meeting for us?
Add it up.
No, but I'm serious. Why couldn't we have a
You know,
big downtown Escalon, that park down there, call it the honor park?
You know, you're already halfway there, and I'll tell you why. The museum and all those bricks, it fascinates me how many people at like events we have in town will just, spend time looking at them, talking to this one, talking about them with people my age,
Well,
people
maybe
younger
we
my
could
age.
incorporate it in
and,
that.
Yeah, and so they're already looking at it. There is an interest in the
There's
history of this
actually,
town.
something already
Yeah.
there with the.
Good,
Yeah.
we could
with
call
the
it the honor
staples.
park, and all those people that do the nice things they do for our community, we can recognize them that way.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be
Be
so
nice.
expensive, it'd be affordable.
I think August 8th, this August, Thursday is the next school board
Yes.
meeting. So if any of you guys are interested, let me know.
Here's what I found.
We're gonna keep, what'd you find? So anyway, so like I said, if you're interested, let me know. I know the school board gets a lot of it, the school staff gets a lot of it, the city staff gets a lot of it. The one part of the equation that we don't have is a council. Okay, I'm gonna be going to this one again, but, you know what, it's really nice to make sure that ice has been broken and we communicate like we've been doing for the last several months. There's been a lot of stuff that we've communicated about, and, it's a very valuable thing, I think. And finally, I don't know if you had a chance on Sunday in the park, ribbon cutting. What a great event. The ribbon cutting was for a small local business, Gem Cookies, started by two girls, okay, who grew up in this town, and they're taking the ball and running with it. It's just fascinating how many of these small businesses, local people have started here. And
Jim, up an idea?
I tell you what, it's a great little incubator, this town. So next Sunday in the park, if you get a chance to go to it, definitely attend it, because odds are there's going to be a ribbon cutting of another small little business in town, and so it's very encouraging. We are going to be going into closed session now. You're more than welcome to stay afterwards if you really want to, but you are welcome to stay. So, that for now, we will be retiring in closed session.
Thanks, Kurt.